the chair, Rebecca LISI, City Councilor at Large. To my left is Councilor Vacan, Ward 5 City Councilor. On Zoom, we're joined by committee members, Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos, representing Ward 6, and Councilor Libby Hernandez, representing Ward 4. Those are the committee members, and in the chambers here, we're also joined by Councilor Bartley from Ward 3 this evening. I'd like to entertain a motion to take up item number 1 and open the public hearing.
A motion to take up item 1 and open the public hearing.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This is a public hearing for special permit application for Rise Holdings, Inc. for a marijuana manufacturing establishment, MME, at 100 Water Street to site and operate an MME in existing buildings 3, 4, and 5. Under discussion, I believe we do have the applicants here this evening. Would the applicants just state their name and address for the record?
Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tom Reedy, an attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst, address is 6 Southeast Street.
Is anyone else representing the applicants this evening?
Yeah, we have a few other folks. I don't know if we want to go through the roll. Adam Robbins with GTI, who is Rise's parent company out of Chicago. We've got Carlos Nieto from Berkshire Design out of Northampton, who is the site designer. Chris Farley from Cunardle Architects in Amherst, who is the architect for the project. And then we've got a couple of other folks from Rise, John Dieter and Eric Merrigan, both GTIs out of Chicago.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so typically we've been in the Zoom format getting a bit of a presentation from the applicants and just walking us through the project design. Is there somebody prepared to do that with us this evening?
Yeah, we'd be happy to. And so I think what we'd like to do is just have a kind of a broad overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Carlos to talk about the site. He can share his screen if he can be given the capability. And then we'll turn it over to Chris Farley to walk through the floor plan. And then if there's any general questions or specific questions that the committee has, please feel free to stop us, or obviously at the end, feel free to ask. So just to orient everyone, this is 100 Water Street, off North Canal and Water Street. Appleton Street is also in close proximity. Rise Holdings is looking for a marijuana manufacturing establishment for buildings 3, 4, and 5, which total about 150,000 gross square feet. Rise, as you may know, was, I think, the city's first marijuana establishment. They were located, and they're still located, at 28 Appleton Street, which I know that the committee has on for hearing later this evening. I think that was back in 2017, and we can go through when we open that hearing just the history of that site. But they have been in Holyoke for some time. I think they have a good partnership with the city. I believe that through their host community agreement payments, they've paid over $1.5 million, contributed over $1.5 million to the city. They like the relationship, they like the partnership that they have with the city, and they're looking to essentially expand their operations for cultivation and processing across the street from their 28 Appleton Street facility, creating, I think, initially 30 to 50 jobs in the first year, and then ramping up over 4 years to about 130 to 150 jobs, good paying jobs starting at $16 an hour plus benefits. For folks, obviously, they look to recruit folks within the city as well. So that's a little bit about what they're looking to do. And I'll turn it over to Carlos to talk about the site specifically, and then to Chris to talk about the floor plan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Nieto. I'm a landscape designer with the Berkshire Design Group out of Northampton, Mass. And there's two of me. There's one with no video, and that's the one that I'm going to be using to share my screen. I was wondering if I could be allowed to share the screen.
I think our administrative assistant is setting you up with that at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Do you want to try it now?
Yes. Still disabled.
There's a second one with no image, is what he said. So that maybe in the attendees as opposed to participants. Carlos Nieto?
Yeah.
Mr. Nieto, do you want to try it now?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just to get us oriented, as Tom Reedy said, the building for 100 Water Street is what's used to be the Hamden Paper Packaging and Supply Store. So we're going to be working on 5, 4, and 3 of the units of this building. Again, as Tom mentioned, there is a larger building complex that includes obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 units of this building. I'm gonna go now to the existing conditions plan, and I will break this down. So right now you're looking at the same building of 100 Water Street. This is the survey that was done for the site, and we're going to be referencing buildings 5, 4, and 3, which I'm going to draw right now, and that's the edge of the extents of the project, building-wise. Also, for the extents of the project, there is, so we're going to be talking about buildings 5, 4, and 3. Oops, sorry. So the site is located, so to the south is the Connecticut River abutting the property. To the west, we have the railroad tracks and an old canal. And then to the north, it's Water Street, which then there is what used to be the canal, then Canal Street. And then to the east, we have the rest of the building complex and then Appleton Street. So the site consists right now of the buildings and a large paved area, which is the loading dock area for the existing building. And what we call the courtyard, which is the space between buildings 3 and 2. And that's the area to the north, and that's the main way to access the building, which is either from Water Street or from Canal Street. To the west of the site, there is a small area of access that is also paved, which is the part of the fire access to the side and back of the property. To the south, where the Connecticut River is, it's a very narrow area. There is a large retaining wall, which serves as a flood prevention wall, right at the edge of basically of the property. And between the building and that wall, there's areas of gravel and mostly other areas of just to access the back of the property. There's 1 or 2 more entrances to building 5. And then there's also another back entrance to building 3, or to unit 3. So the proposed changes to the site are very minimal. Most of the changes to the project are happening really within the buildings, and Chris Farley is going to go more in detail on what that entails. I'm going to move now from this existing conditions to the next. And the main proposed changes that are happening to the site is that we are eliminating part of the existing loading docks. 3 of them are being eliminated, and just leaving 2 loading docks at the corner. And we're converting part of that area that's a large paved area, basically striping it as parking spaces and denominating that as parking. There's a great change between buildings 5 and 4, and so is in the site. So there's about a 3-foot grade change from where this parking area and this secondary parking area are, which there's a stairwell or staircase that accesses and connects both of those 2 parking areas. And then within that area that we've new parking areas, there are several utilities and other aspects of the site that we've developed here. I wanted to move to the courtyard, which is then the other area of parking. And like I said before and mentioned before, this is all this area is all totally paved currently. So and used as parking currently. What we're doing is restriping it and changing how the loading dock area works. So we're eliminating some of them and using that area as parking. So we're providing a total of 52 parking spaces within this line striping. And as we mentioned before, because we're only doing work on 5, 4, and 3, we're only, in this part of the project, we're only looking at this side of the courtyard as areas that we will do improvements for parking and egress and entrances to the new building. The main entrance to the project will be located on building 3. And there are several improvements that are being done to that entrance, including ADA accessibility ramps to be able to access the building. And then improvements to the entrance. Also security lighting. And as I move back, so we will be line striping the rest of the parking here for us, so we can have 22 parking spaces. There will be a new egress with a concrete pad that's just at grade. And so if we keep moving around the building to the west here, there's going to be a new access. There'll be a new loading dock in this area, and with a secure sally port. So it's going to be a fenced secure sally port. And then as we move again to the west, more infrastructure going on in this area. So several new concrete pads, 3 of them, for electric transformer and a small power generator, and the switch, I believe, for the transformer. So basically all the electric infrastructure will be happening kind of at that corner. And then opposite to that, so along the other side of those 10 parking spaces, again, all existing paved area, there's a new pad, and this is for a CO2 tank that's used for the manufacturing facility. And as we keep moving along, as we get to the lower section where we have the current loading docks, we are proposing a new concrete dumpster pad and screen area for that. Currently, there are, again, 2 other loading docks, and then finally we have an existing trash compactor that's existing, and the client is planning on keeping that. We're also providing several light posts at the parking area, just again, safety, security, and we'll look at we've provided a lighting plan just to show that. Again, as we keep moving back, new improvements that are going to be done. Sorry. new improvements are going to be done to the project are going to be several new points of egress with pads and staircases close, just directly attached to the building. There are 3 of those new ones. The building existing had one at the corner, and that one's going to be eliminated, and a new one is going to be shifted on that building 5 towards the east side. And then, as same in the back of building 3, there will be a new egress with its. Well, actually, that's an existing egress with a new security lighting. So we'll move to the back. So, again, site-wise, we're not planning on repaving. I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry, Carlos. I just wanted to say that egress on the back of building 3 is a new egress.
A new one,
not existing.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's mainly the extent of the project. We're not proposing any repaving. I mean, again, the area is already paved. It's in decent condition, so we're not proposing any repaving of the site. It's just going to be the line striping and then several pads for the utilities that we've talked about. I'm going to move to the. These are some of the just details. I'm gonna just quickly show what this is, the type of enclosure we're thinking of for the dumpster area. It's gonna be a single one instead of a double that we're showing here. But that's the look that we're looking for the screening. We're also we've also provided 2 areas of bike racks, I believe, on the site plan as part of our parking and traffic part of the plan.
Are there more improvements interiorly? Was there a different?
Yeah. Inside the building?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll move. We'll move 1 second, and this is the. I just wanted to put just a final plan here. It's the lighting plan, and just making sure that we show that we are providing new LED, dark sky compliant or cutoff compliant type fixtures, both for, this is the style of fixture that's going to be used. That's for the post, and this is for the wall mounted fixtures. And here is our light plans, just looking at the extent of where the light is going to be projected. And then I will move to then, if Chris Farley could please then go into more detail into the architecture.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Carlos, and good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for taking the time to let us walk you through this. I am going to share my screen, if that's okay. Let's see here. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So this is a plan of the 3 buildings. This is building 3. Long, narrow building here is building 4, and the roughly square building here on the end is building 5. It's the same orientation as the plan that Carlos was just showing. So I'm going to take us through a very quick review of how the interior space is being proposed to be used. So building 5, I'm just going to start with building 5 here. This is meant to be the cultivation portion of the building. There are planned to be 9 flower rooms, a couple of veg rooms, 2 mother and a clone potting room, taking up most of the space inside this building. There will be 4 dry rooms, locker rooms for employees, and a fertigation area here in the back. And then on the front, facing Canal Street, there will be the 2 existing loading docks that will remain, the trash compactor that Carlos referred to on the end here, and that'll be the shipping and receiving area, or storage area just beyond that. There are 3 existing loading docks which will be closed in. And the intention is that the outside wall surface will be, the infill wall will match the existing. And then this is where the existing entry is for the building. It is going to become an emergency egress only. And the 2 offices on either side will remain for the head grower office and then a general office area. We have a small open office area here in the front as well. Building 5 is a 1-story building, so what you see here is exactly how that space will be used. And you can see there's a series of corridors on the interior, and those corridors terminate in new doors and new exterior stairs. 3 on the west side here, 1 at the end of the main corridor here. This is on the south, on the river facing side. And then there's this new egress here in the corner of building 3. And then so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this plan here, which is essentially the main entry level plan. This is the courtyard that Carlos referred to, and this is the new main entry which is occurring at building 3. A new accessible ramp, a set of stairs that enters into a vestibule area with a security office attached directly to it. And then the main part of this floor of building 3 is going to be offices, open office and individual offices, more locker rooms for the production staff at GTI, break room, and then offices and conference rooms facing south toward the river. We plan on putting a new stair in this, I guess it would be the northwest corner, and then one in the southeast corner to provide adequate egress for all floors. So building 3 and building 4, these are each 4-story buildings. These are the older mill buildings that were built around the turn of the century, around 1900. Masonry exterior walls and heavy timber interior construction. The majority of building 3 is going to be what we call welfare space, and that includes offices, locker rooms, break rooms, conference rooms, etc. And then building 4 is really going to be a combination of storage and production space. And at this point, I'm going to move back to this plan, which shows the basement level, the main level for the building. So in building 3, there is not yet a firm plan for how that basement space will be used. So we really don't have that area programmed. In building 4, the intention is that there will be a general open storage area. And this is for non-secure storage, so there will be no product stored here, but general supplies, packaging, that sort of thing. A new electrical room in this upper corner that'll be directly adjacent to the new transformers and generators out on grade. And then we do have a temperature-controlled storage area for things that require temperature and humidity control. And then we have back here a nutrient storage space, and that is for the fertigation area and will be used for the fertigation of the cultivation space. The rest of the space in building 4 at this level is circulation space. There is an existing freight elevator here in the corner of building 3, and that is intended to remain to give access to all 4 levels of the building. And then we already looked at what is essentially the main level, the first floor, the main entry level. I will say that we do have 2 secure sally ports here with 2 new overhead doors here. And then we have a non-secure delivery and shipping area for anything that is not, doesn't require the necessary security. So no product, no marijuana product would be going through that. This Sally port here, it is able to take 2 vehicles at one time, but it is patterned after the Sally port across the street at 28 Appleton. So it will be an 8-foot high chain link fence with vinyl privacy slats. And at the end, there will be 2 overhead doors to get access and to provide a secure area for loading and unloading. So on the inside, secure receiving and loading directly adjacent to that Sally port area. And then order fulfillment, flower packaging, a secure vault, analytics labs, a hand trim area, and a mechanical trim area on that second floor. And then the remainder of the space is circulation. This is a new stair that is being added again for egress requirements, and that is that new at-grade door that exits out into the courtyard. And then in the 3rd and 4th story plans, I'm going to start with the 4th floor, the upper floor. In building 3, that is also currently unprogrammed. So we don't really have a firm use for that space at this point. The 4th floor for building 4 is a dedicated mechanical space. So it's for mechanical equipment. There are several areas of the 3rd floor that may need additional ceiling height, and so we'll have to remove the floor of this 4th floor. But essentially there's no product, no manufacturing up here. It is really just a mechanical support space. Excuse me. And then on the 3rd floor of building 3, again, we have offices, we have open workspace, additional locker rooms for production staff, break room, meeting room, and some unprogrammed space here. But I think the intention, as I understand it, is that it will be administrative related space or welfare space. It will not be production. No product will be brought into this space in building 3. And then in building 4, the 3rd floor, there's a kitchen and packaging area in the back. A smaller kitchen packaging area here, cleaning area. This is a tablet room for tablet production, MIPS dry storage, MIPS processing, MIPS work in progress, and MIPS prep, and then more MIPS packaging and general storage here on the 3rd floor. And again, circulation space surrounding all of those areas. I just want to go back quickly to the cover sheet. So you can see here in this 3D image, this is building 4, the masonry building. This is building 3. You can see the ramp and the new stairway for the new main entry here. This is the 3 new loading docks, the unsecure loading dock in front and the 2 secure loading docks with an 8-foot fence and 2 overhead doors. And you can see bollards around here, and you can see the electrical transformers, ground-mounted transformers here. And then on building 5, you can see the 3 loading dock areas that will be infilled, and the 2 loading dock areas and the compactor area that will remain. Well, I think that's a pretty good overview. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Thanks so much. It's really great to see how the buildings create a really neat space for the grown production to happen, and so it's great to see. Thank you. We just got notification that Councillor Leahy has joined us online. So I want to just ask 2 questions to begin with. First of all, we are looking only at buildings 3, 4, and 5, and I was just wondering if Rise Holdings owns buildings 1 and 2 and is not doing anything with them, or if they're under ownership by someone else.
So I'll take that. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a great question. So Rise Holdings currently has the entire property, so buildings 1 through 5, plus all of the land that they sit on, under contract to purchase. So they would be acquiring the entire property, inclusive of buildings 1 and 2. At this point, though, they're only seeking approval for buildings 3, 4, and 5.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to get that clarified. And then finally, in the presentation of the internal layout, we talked about non-secure storage happening in Building 4. And I was just wondering if the fertilizer was secure or unsecure, because I could imagine there being some chemicals in fertilizer that may need to be secure, but I defer to you to fill us in there.
Sure. And Adam, I don't know if you know, I mean, when we talk about secure, it really is, under the Cannabis Control Commission and those cannabis products, and not necessarily, and I don't want to say hazardous material because I don't know that the chemicals in any of the fertilizer is, but I don't know that we're considering that secure. Adam, I don't know if you want to expand at all about the fertilizer.
Yeah, I think the secure delivery is more about the actual bringing of the inbound product from the outside inside. Let's remember, the entire interior of the facility will be secured with access control doors and cameras and our robust security system. So once it's inside the facility, it's technically secured. We designate the specific secured area with the sally port and the overhead doors more in relation to bringing outbound finished cannabis goods out of the facility into the delivery vehicles to be delivered to the registered dispensaries throughout the state.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Do any members of the committee have questions?
I have a question.
Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. Thanks for the overview. It was very helpful, but it's hard for me to see the space. And I was just wanting to verify that the access road or the access drive that goes down the side and around the back of the building with the new egresses that are being built will still be adequate for all the fire apparatus to get all the way in and around the back?
Chris, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Sure. So let me just move in here. I think that's a very good question. This westerly paved access is a 20-foot wide access currently from the face of the building to the edge of the pavement. The new exterior stairs and railings and landings will be about 5 feet wide, so it still does provide a 15-foot wide access, width access, which we feel is certainly adequate for emergency vehicles. And the access gravel road on the back of the building between the building and the Connecticut River. We do have an existing stair which is being removed here on this corner. And the new stairs that we are proposing are not going to protrude any further out from the building. And so again, we believe that it still does provide adequate circulation space for emergency vehicles. The only thing I would say, Carlos, is do you have anything to add to that, to what I just said?
You're on mute.
And in addition to the area that's paved, all the area right to the west of that paved drive, it's also open and available and graded. So it's also not an area it's not impeded for any traffic to move around there. So it even gives more space on that area.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for your interest in expanding and investing. A couple of questions. So building 1 and 2 are not part of this plan two things. I assume from building 3, there will not be access for any of your employees to get to building 2.
That is correct.
That's correct. And are there somewhat in the relatively near future plans for 1 and 2, or are you looking to sublease it, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now, no plans to sublease. I think it would be to secure both buildings 1 and 2, so security cameras, locks, etc. And then, as probably Holyoke has seen over the past 5 years, that it's a new industry, rapidly changing, rapidly evolving, and so I think having the space of buildings 1 and 2 allows GTI to evolve and react to what's going to be needed in the future. And just because it's a rapidly evolving market, I don't think they know how they're going to use it. But I can say probably pretty unequivocally, I don't think there's any plans to sublease that space. It's really holding on to it to figure out what that next step is. It's maybe a 3-year plan, and we're back in front of you for a modification of this approval for expansion. But I think that depends on what happens in the market.
Okay. Let me just go into a concern I have in terms of the salaries. I'm assuming if we had, and I think you said about 50 jobs were to start, and I believe you said $16 an hour. So I calculated that, and I came out with that as $33,000, which really does not take a person, it's somewhat better, but it's certainly not enough for a person to be able to support a family and things along that line. So 2 questions. I know your operation across the street has been for a few years. I'm assuming they probably started at that 16. Can you tell me, have wages gone up in that particular location? And if so, can you give me an idea what the average laborer's wage is?
Sure. And Adam, I don't know if you've got that information, or maybe Eric could let us know.
Yeah, I don't have all that information, but I will add that, the $16 an hour is the starting wage, and that does not include the benefits, but it can really ramp up depending on if you're, going into a supervisor role, a shift manager role, upper management. We have salaried positions. So there is quite the opportunity for advancement within the organization. But for a specific number, I would have to get back to you, unfortunately.
Okay, I would appreciate it if you do that. Let me ask another question, and just in terms of potential, and again, I'm looking at trying to get your employee to work a full-time job and be able to, with that salary, be able to support a family. So just if you were, I know you said 50 jobs, and I just went down, if it were 40 jobs, and potentially the wage could go up. Is 50 based on a potential labor cost, or is 50 based on specific functions that need to be carried out? And I know I'm getting into a lot of questions here, but obviously people earning a living and being able to work, and I'm assuming they're working 40 hours. I don't know that, but I'm assuming they are. One of my jobs is to make sure that those people working that have a living wage. So, sure.
No, and I think it's a really appropriate question. I mean, Adam and I talked about it a little earlier today, and I think it's a function of the specific requirements needed. I don't think it's anything about maximizing profits. I think it's the demand for what is needed at the site, and that is going to ramp up over time. And I think at that point it's more jobs, and like Adam said, it's the ladder. You start at one, and then you can continue to climb. GTI, just to take a step back, is a multi-state operator, and so there's a lot of vertical opportunity within the company itself. And Adam, I don't know if you know exactly how many employees GTI has across the country. But it's unique where it's not that you're not just stuck in the same role without the potential for advancement. There's certainly a potential for advancement here. And I think, in my discussions with Adam, I think Rise currently has about 32% of their employees in Holyoke coming from Holyoke, and it's something that they're looking to increase. But Adam, I don't know if you have some of the other answers.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, to your point, throughout the country, we have roughly 2,500 employees. Not every position that would be at this facility would start at that $16 an hour. We would be looking to bring in, people with higher level degrees, whether they are, agricultural degrees or chemistry degrees for our lab. So the range of salary or compensation really kind of runs the gambit depending on the type of role that the employee would be serving at the facility.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that, but this will be my last thought here, but again, going 32% of your employees at GTI are from Holyoke, if I just heard correctly. Can you give me an idea of how many of those are in the upper salary schedule as opposed to the lower salary schedule? And if you can't give it to me today, if you can't give me that today, I would appreciate that at some point.
Yeah, no, and we can certainly provide that to you, offline. We're obviously hoping for, an approval this evening or a recommendation this evening, but we're happy to follow up with you to give you that detail. We're not.
Okay. No, I appreciate
just
that.
have to get it.
And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to talk about it. So I appreciate that as well. So thank you.
I just have a question.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you. On the question of the parking and the traffic, I read your notes and the feedback from our engineer. And I was just wondering, with the restriping that you did of the existing paved area, did you end up with more parking spaces than that had been originally delineated there, or fewer with the 52?
That's a good question. Chris, I don't know if you can bring up the existing conditions, and Carlos, I don't know if you know off the top of your head. I know we end up with 52,
Yeah.
but as it relates,
And
I
I'm
would
only
think we're
asking-
getting more just because there's a more organized form
Okay.
to it. I think previously, I don't know that it was striped.
Okay.
And now I think we're dealing with striping. So then obviously you have more organization instead of just folks kind of driving all different places. Plus, we are eliminating 3 of those overhead doors. So in the spaces where you see, right where that mouse is, those couldn't have existed before because they were in the travel way for vehicles utilizing those overhead doors. So I would think that we are increasing from what was existing.
Because the reason I ask is because with these projects, we almost always run into shortages with parking over time. I mean, right now, it looks like you're fine because you're in the startup phase. But so I was just interested to know. But it looks like you added about 15 maybe to what was there.
Yeah, and it's something that, we continue to pay attention to. And so as we ramp up, the hiring and finding good employees requires, having parking for those employees that are going to have vehicles, finding those folks in Holyoke that, are able to commute through alternative modes of transportation, whether it's
Right.
walking, riding a bike, taking public transportation. But it's something that GTI really pays attention to. So it's certainly on our radar. We think this is sufficient for our needs, but especially with buildings 1 and 2, and then obviously, if parking becomes an issue, we like to be ahead of that. So we're even now we're starting to pay attention to what could we do in the future.
Okay, and are you going to be talking any further about the traffic question that was raised, or is this a good time in your presentation to just address the idea that the engineer put forth that should there be more traffic generated than was thought, that we would be putting in a condition relative to mitigation of?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect time, Madam Counselor. I really appreciate the city engineer's discussion on this, his points on this, and frankly, working over the weekend with us on this.
He's a good guy like that.
Yeah, he was fantastic. So in his email today, I think that's, if you're going to suggest a condition to be imposed on this permit, I think it would be, should the operation of the project cause traffic issues, the applicant will work with the city to determine how to mitigate those issues and implement a mitigation plan. And why it's not fluffy, but it is just not definitive, because
Right.
You have to determine why is there a traffic issue, what is causing it, and then what are some of the alternative mitigation solutions there could be. Is it a
Exactly.
police detail? Is it et cetera, et cetera?
Exactly.
So I think that probably encapsulates it pretty nicely.
Yeah, and it looked like you were comfortable with that, and he was too,
Yes.
from a quick read of it.
Yes, I think
Thank
you're correct.
you.
Are there questions from any other committee members or counselors at this point? I'm sorry. Council Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, petitioners, for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. I guess I'm going to talk about a couple things. So, I just want to follow up on the transportation part. Just recap for me the total number of employees you have at the current facility and the proposed number at the proposed facility.
So at the existing facility, I believe we have 88 employees currently. We are looking, as we will talk about probably in a little bit, we are looking to add 12 employees to that site. And at this site, we're thinking about, we're going to start with, I believe it's 30 to 50. And Adam, if I misspeak, please jump in. And I believe what we'd be doing is taking employees or moving employees from the existing over to this proposed, because they're obviously already trained and knowledgeable in how to run this operation. And then over the balance of, maybe another 3 years, we'd be looking to add additional employees to this operation.
Okay, so that's great news. So you've got a track record. You've got some existing data. Where are you in terms of Holyoke residents that are amongst your?
Yeah, I think it's 32%. So about a third of what we have currently are Holyoke residents.
Yeah, I think that number is roughly 28 employees of that 88.
That's great. That's great news. To hear that. Tell me. You said you were in tune with public transportation, and so why don't you tell me your efforts when you say you're in tune? What does that mean? Well, I mean, what are you doing that besides? The PVTA exists, but what are you petitioning the PVTA for more stops, more routes, more buses? Are you doing something specifically to have a dedicated bus line, something similar to what HCC or Holyoke Medical Center does? Just tell me about your efforts.
Yeah, no, great question. So not yet. I don't know how often you've dealt with the PVTA, but typically, they run a tight ship. They've got their times and pickups, and to add an additional route or an additional stop, you have to have the demand. And I don't know at this point that we have the demand, but I think over time, as we continue to expand, it's certainly a discussion. I think my point was more along the lines of why we are incentivized to find additional Holyoke residents, likely because of the shorter commute and a shorter commute on public transportation, just because it would be simpler. So that's all I meant. There's nothing in the works currently as it relates to petitioning the PVPA or PVTA, et cetera, to get them to add a stop or add a route. But it's certainly on our radar. I've done it before in other municipalities, so we know how it's done.
That's great. Just if I may, just through the chair to Acting Member Murphy, Terry, have you been able to attend any PVTA meetings?
No.
Okay, I didn't think you would have had time, but you're
I get notes from it, but I haven't
but
been
you're an ad hoc member,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think our former mayor attended but one meeting, so we didn't have really a whole lot of input on that board.
I do know someone from planning now goes, so.
On a regular basis?
Yes.
Okay,
They-
so,
As a, alternative voice or whatever. The
Surrogate.
surrogate, yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Terry. Just in terms of site control, you said you had you said you are in a contract with the. I assume it's with Hamden Papers because they're the last owners of it. I assume, but tell me about the site control situation.
Yeah, so you're correct. We have a contract that is contingent upon, multiple things, as many real estate contracts are. Permitting is one of those things. Good title is another. And we have a closing date with Hamden Papers to acquire the entirety of the site.
What's the potential closing date, if I may?
I think we're looking at the fall. Adam, I don't know if that's still the case.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. As soon as we can close up the items around permitting, we will be in a position to trigger closing.
So I think I saw the assessed value was somewhere north of $1 million on that property, but I didn't, I didn't study it exactly. But so is it fair to say that the actually, I'll tell you exactly what it is in a second if I can find it. But is it fair to say that the sale price would meet or exceed the assessed value?
I want to be respectful of the confidentiality provisions in the agreement, but I think that the city, I will say this, that RISE is looking to increase the tax base here.
Yeah, so the building value is $950,000, land value is $80,500, the total value is $1.05 million for a property built, it's in various stages, but 1935 but couple acres. And I know it's zoned IG, so that's so you don't have to come back for a zoning change. So that's great. So I will. I'm sure we're all going to enthusiastically support this, and we like we love hearing good news about job creation and possible transportation improvements. And what do you see? Where do you see this? Where do you see for your business? Just anybody. I'm not sure if anybody can answer. Where do you see this building, helping to lead your business? And then just as a follow up to that, where do you see Holyoke going in 4 to 5 years, 6 years? If you want to speculate, if you don't want to, that's fair too.
If you ever give an attorney the opportunity to talk, I think he's going to take it. I think this fits in with what GTI's longer term plan is as it relates to increasing its cultivation canopy. I think you've seen in the Massachusetts market over the past 5 years, and I think this had started with Marcos, frankly, identifying that Holyoke had many buildings that were suitable to be revitalized. And I think Holyoke has really seized on that opportunity. When I look around, and whether it's, GTI as the first and now coming back for more to increase their footprint in canopy space, Holyoke has great proximity to, the highway 391. I live over in South Hadley. I'm right across the bridge, so I'm through by these locations all the time. It's, Holyoke's got a lot going for it, and they've got these buildings that are really suitable for these types of uses. And the city is good to work with. And that's not something that can be said for every municipality that I or we go into. And it takes hard work. It takes, RISE's track record, GTI's track record over the past pick a number of years, not only in Holyoke, but also, in different municipalities across the United States to put their money where their mouth is, to do what they say they're going to do, and to build relationships. And so I think it's expanding their operational capacity, their ability to wholesale, and also doing it in a place where they know the folks. It's a predictable environment, and there's a good partnership. And I think when you have that, there's a lot of symbiosis between the two. So where Holyoke goes, tough to say. I just had represented Wind Development and what they're doing over on Appleton Street with their new housing project. And so you see some housing coming down to this area, and you've got jobs in this area, and it seems like a little bit of a renaissance. So, that's obviously up for the council to figure out where Holyoke goes, but that's, I think, long-windedly where I see it going.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we do want to make sure we credit the former OPED director, Marcus Marrero, that you just referenced. I would just point out for you and the body that it was this body and the city council that determined the zone, the IG zone, is which this industry would be limited to. So, I mean, there were certainly many competing arguments that it should be in multiple zones, and some even said all zones, RA, R1, R2, all zones. But the majority of this council, which included me, said IG zone. So once this body, not Mr. Marrero, not anybody else, once this body determined the zone, then Mr. Merrill's job, which he did well, was to lead the industry to the appropriate facilities within the zone. So let me just clarify that for you. So, but we appreciate you being here, and thanks for your time.
Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, TTI, and for considering Holyoke and for adding to the livability of the residents here, offering them jobs, and for being, so they can be part of the success. And so my question is, I didn't see like any bike racks. I know that you spoke about the shorter commutes with residents being hired. Is there gonna be any like space in the interior or exterior with bike racks, or did I miss that employees could ride their bikes and park inside or outside?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we are proposing some bike racks on the exterior. Bike racks on the interior is actually a really good idea. I've done that in some housing developments where you just have like the bike storage on the wall. You can just like hook the bike in, and that's actually, and there's some unprogrammed space in here. So maybe that's something that we look at for that alternative modes of transportation. But to answer your question directly, yes, we've got some exterior surface mounted bike racks to hope that people will commute to work.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from committee members or members of the council? Seeing none, I'd like to invite any members of the public that are present to either speak in favor or against this project. It is a public hearing. If you're joining us online through the Zoom system, you can, if you have the ability to raise your hand by clicking on the participants button and then finding your name, clicking on raise hand, or if you're joining by phone, if there's anyone by phone, it's *9. Nope. Okay, seeing that there's none, then I'll just note that the Office of Planning and Economic Development reviewed your application. It's a really complete application proposal, and all of the initial concerns that the planning department raised have been addressed satisfactorily. They did recommend 2 conditions that it seems you've already been able to review and find satisfactory. Those 2 conditions are that if any sidewalks, walkways, and ramps are built, they must comply with accessibility codes per 521 CMR, and that in the event of any proposed changes to the approved plans prior to their implementation, the applicant would be required to come back to the City Council for review and approval for an amendment to the special permit. And that would include all of the undesignated space in the buildings that you outlined in the presentation this evening. Per the communication with the city engineer, we do see that you understand all of the issues that the engineer raised. There's nothing outstanding, save that if the project does cause any traffic issues, that the applicant will work with the city to determine how to mitigate those issues and implement a mitigation plan. Beyond that, we do have the standard set of conditions that we put on all applicants. And they've changed some since the first time you were here because we've changed our ordinance slightly. But here we go. They are that the owner of the building will always pay commercial property tax rate to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit. That the business must retain a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs. That hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police or a retired member of another police department that now lives in Holyoke. There shall be no marijuana consumption allowed on site. And that the hours of operation comply with the city ordinances. So that's 5, 6 from the engineer, and 7, 8 conditions in total, including the planning department conditions. Any other comments on the conditions or anything else from the committee? I'd entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So moved. And then is there a motion that we approve the special permit?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve the special permit?
Second. With the conditions as read, 1 through 8. I believe it was 8.
With the conditions as read, 1 through 6.
It's 8, so that is,
8.
motion has been made and seconded to approve the special permit with the 8 conditions as read into the record. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. So that was 100 Water Street. Thank you.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion
Thank you.
to continue in regular order to item number 2, which is another special permit hearing.
I'll make a motion to go to item 2 and open the public hearing.
Motion has been made and seconded to go to item number 2, open the public hearing for a amendment to a special permit application for Rise Holdings at 28 Appleton Street for the expansion of the existing marijuana manufacturing establishment that's in that building. All in favor to?
Aye.
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 And
Aye.
any opposed? So moved. So this is a public hearing. We're opening the public hearing, and in a similar fashion, we would invite the applicants to give us a brief review of the project. Given that this is an expansion, I think just explaining how this expansion relates to the project that's already there.
We'll be brief. Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Tom Reedy, an attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst, here on behalf of Rise Holdings. So, yeah, real brief history. 2017, the council approved the second floor of 28 Appleton Street for medical cultivation. 2018, there was an amendment to allow adult use. So it was adult use and medical both at that site. And so now we're coming back looking for expansion to the first floor for canning operations, pre-rolled cannabis products, and also some of that welfare space. And so we're looking to hire 12 employees for this space. And Chris, I don't know if you want to put up the floor plan just so we can take a quick look at it. Nothing is going to change with the upstairs space, for lack of a better phrase. And this is really just an expansion down to the first floor.
I'm sorry, Tom, if I could just interrupt for a moment. I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties with the 28 Appleton floor plan.
I can share my screen, I think.
You have access to that? That would be very helpful. Thank you.
And I guess I would ask maybe Jeffrey if he could allow me to share. Okay.
It looks like you're good on this end.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so if you can all see my screen, which I can see it myself, the gray is 28 Appleton Street. The white area here is where the expansion is occurring. I'll go to this space. So the exterior, really minimal changes. You've got an entryway here or egress here in the back. This is all staying the same. You've got your canning operation happening here, packaged product storage here, and then this is that wellness space that we talked about, break room. Office is really like transitory office, we'll call it. So because RISE is a multi-state operator, if they've got somebody coming in from one of the other sites, they'll at least have a place to work and probably the general manager on site. You've got locker rooms. So if folks are working upstairs and need to come down to do something here, they've got a place. There's a wellness space upstairs, so this isn't to replace that. This is just in addition to it, specifically for those folks that are doing the canning operation, because if there's cultivation on the second floor and there's a worker who's working in the second floor, this is more of a sterile environment, so they'd have to come down, change, and then they could go to this space here. So really, in a nutshell, this is the first floor. We've maintained, for the existing landowner, he's got circulation around the exterior for Mark Cutting's operation there. So this is what we're looking and how we're looking to expand. I'm happy to answer questions, but you've been at it for over an hour now, so I want to be respectful of your time.
Can you just reiterate, so it's more of the welfare space that's being expanded at this site?
It's more of the what? I'm sorry?
The welfare space?
Oh, yeah. So this is really for the canning operation, which is this area here, packaged product storage here. So the canning is for cannabis infused beverages, which is part of kind of the next turn of the industry, if you will. There's some manufacturers who do it. And so RISE is taking that next step to actually manufacture on site those cannabis infused beverages. So that's what's happening here. And then this is that wellness space. And so it's actually providing very usable office space where my mouse is here, break room in this area here, men's locker room, women's locker room. And then you've got a secured vault and then some other, this is that pre-rolled production. So hopefully I didn't go through it too quickly this time.
So it's the wellness space, I think.
Wellness, yeah. So welfare, wellness, just, the break room, the offices, change of clothes, having a locker, you bike to work, you need to shower, you can do that because you're going to have your own individual locker here.
Yeah. Okay. And now the building is still owned by Mr. Cutting, and the operation is just expanding into these other areas, and otherwise there's, as you mentioned, minimal exterior changes.
Correct. Still owned by Mark Cutting. I think it's through a realty trust, and it's just, and I think we provided it for you, just an amendment to the existing lease to include that space that was outlined just previously.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions from committee members or Councilor Bacon?
Thank you for this update. And I'm just looking at the engineer's comments around the 3 additional parking spaces. And I'm wondering, if you're looking for more parking, is it at all reasonable that the space at the 100 Water Street, that any of that parking could be used? Or is that not convenient enough?
Yeah, that's a good question. We were trying to keep these 2 projects separate. We think that given the 3 additional parking spaces, folks will be able to find those parking spaces. We obviously had agreed with the city engineer. We're not looking to modify that existing agreement with the city relative to that public parking lot.
Right.
As a practical matter, if the employees can't find parking on the site, they're probably going to head over to 100 Water Street for parking. I just don't know that we would want to make that any sort of condition of this or that permit, because it links the 2 in a way that I think just makes it a little bit difficult. So that would be my response.
So, all right. So perhaps we're not looking at it as a condition, but as a practical matter, it's something that could logistically occur
Correct.
if you needed to internally do it as an operational matter.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Council Bartley?
Yeah, first of all, since you, tell me more about the canning. What, I, hold on, this guy.
What would you like to know?
You all right?
Yeah, why don't you just give me some details if you would, because I'm kind of curious about it. First of all, I didn't realize that that the product came in liquid form, but I guess I shouldn't be shocked. And then what? Just give me the basics. What kind of products are going to be canned? How many cans? What are we thinking about for shifts? What do we think about how we're going to retail it to where? That sort of stuff.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, and I can, and I'll tee up John Dieter just to fill in the holes of whatever it is that I miss on this. So, cannabis infused beverages are kind of that next wave, as I had suggested. And so what it is it's cannabis infused carbonated tonic, essentially. So, for example, there's this can line, CANN, that is cranberry sage flavored. So they have their proprietary blend of natural ingredients. They mix it with THC. So, for example, that can is 2 milligrams of THC and 4 milligrams of CBD, and it's sold at dispensaries. So it's not sold in liquor stores. You have to go into a dispensary to actually acquire that product. And I would expect that beyond that, cranberry sage, there's probably some other flavors that will be available once this site gets up and operational. For volume, I can't really tell you, but for social tonic generally, I think it gives an alternative to folks who don't want to ingest some other way, whether it's through flower, through smoking, through vaping, through edibles, and it is more of a social drink where you can be with folks who are drinking potentially alcohol. They pour it into a glass, and someone's drinking this cannabis infused beverage. At 2%, it's not gonna put you on your derriere, and it's just kind of it's what you're seeing in the market to allow folks to really control the way that if they want to get into cannabis. You have a half a can, it's 1 milligram of THC, which you're really not going to find, any other way. And it also, instead of where an edible might take a couple of hours, you probably have something that is, 10 to 15 to 20 minutes before you start to feel the effects. So we can get into more detail if you'd like, but that's probably a high level view of what this, cannabis infused beverage.
So the manufacturing is going to happen this proposed manufacturing is going to happen at 28. That's the
correct. And so they'll take the cannabis from upstairs. I would expect they'd have to distill it down into some sort of oil. Again, I'm a lawyer, not a scientist, and then infuse it into the beverage, and then that's where it becomes the liquid. And I'm sure it's more sophisticated than that. And then it's that beverage that goes out literally in cans.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's good. That's good enough for me. I don't think I need to have many more details on that. Just back to the site control, if I could for a second. Other than your representation that you have a potential lease in this case and a potential purchase and sale contract, does a petitioner not have an obligation to show some kind of written verification of this? Does the CMR speak to that at all?
Yeah, so we have provided your zoning ordinance requires that we provide evidence of site control. And so for this application, we've provided you a third amendment to the lease that outlines the expanded premises and shows that we will have site control. I think if we exercise the options, I want to say through 2037. And then we also have letters from the landowner just identifying that we do in fact have site control and that he's okay with this application coming forward.
Welcome.
Going back to 100 Water Street, we also had provided that purchase and sale agreement showing that we had that site under site control as well. And we also provided notarized letters from that landowner allowing us to move forward and that we had site control. So those they have been provided to the city.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Are you all set, Council Bartley?
Yep, thank you, I said.
Okay. Just one quick question, since you were bringing up the can example. Can is a brand name, and you're not going to have can brand name products out of this canning facility. You're going to have your own GTI product.
So, and Adam, if I misstep, let me know. My understanding is that GTI has a license agreement with CAN.
Okay.
And so CAN, the brand, will be produced out of this facility.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure I understood that it was that is exactly what you were saying, as opposed to an example of another product.
It is exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. So now that we heard the presentation, we should allow any members of the public to speak. Anyone in favor or opposed to this project, please raise your hand, either by clicking on the participants button and raising your hand there, or if you're joining by phone, *9. Is there anyone there, Jeffrey? It seems that there are none. So before we close the public hearing, I just want to read into the record. Again, this seems to be another very complete application for the amendment. The planning department reviewed the application, asked a number of questions, but they've all been satisfied per the letter that the city council has received on this. They do recommend the same 2 conditions that we spoke about previously regarding sidewalks, walkways, and ramps complying with accessibility codes per the Massachusetts 521 CMR. And also that in the event that there are any proposed changes to the approved plans, that prior to their implementation, the applicant will be required to come back to the city council for review and approval to file an amendment to the special permit. And then finally, from the engineer, which you've already seen and find to be satisfactory, the engineer requests that any permit approval be conditioned upon providing the DPW with detailed design drawings for the production and storage areas and associated drain piping, so that the chemical containment and compatibility issues can be reviewed further prior to the start of construction. Pre-treatment and/or containment and off-site disposal of liquid waste may be required. And the response that you gave here says that you're amenable to that condition. Yes, just that you're amenable to that condition.
Right.
And then we have the other 5 conditions that we have been asking applicants to comply with, and I'll read them into the record again. Number 1, that the owner of the building always pay commercial property tax to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit. That the business retain a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs. That the hiring preferences be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police or a retired member of another police department who now lives in Holyoke. There shall be no marijuana consumption allowed on site, and the hours of operation should comply with the local ordinances. No objections to those?
None. Thank you.
8 conditions then. I'll entertain a motion that we close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Motion is made and seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. The hearing is closed. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion has been made.
With the 8 conditions as read into the record.
The
Second.
motion has been made and seconded that the special permit amendment to the application be approved with the 8 amendments that we just read into the record. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. That amendment to
Thank
the
you very
special
much.
permit has been granted, or
Thank you very much.
recommended to the full city council, who will vote on it on August 4th for both of these.
Third.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry, 3rd.
Great, thank you.
August
Thank you.
3rd.
Thank you.
And if you can send me those salary figures, I'd appreciate that, okay?
Got it. That's on my list.
Thank you.
Perfect. Sure.
Thank you.
And I've invited the next group in so they can be
Sure.
in a visible sight.
So we can see you sit in front.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to take up item number 3 then.
Motion to take up item 3.
Second.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to proceed in order to item number 3. This is an order filed by Councilor Murphy and myself that the City Council consider adopting a wage theft ordinance for all contractors doing projects for the city or receiving special tax incentives by the city, similar to Easthampton and Springfield, with the following purposes: prevent misclassification of employees as independent contractors, assure that employees are paying all payroll taxes and workers' compensation premiums, comply with the state laws governing payment of prevailing wages, and assure that contractors provide opportunities for Holyoke residents, veterans, people of color, and women. All in favor of taking up this item?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. We took this up on the 25th of May last. I'll let Councilor Murphy, as the lead sponsor, lead the discussion here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one correction on the order. Assure that employers are paying.
That's what I was going to say.
Sorry,
Yours, right?
employers.
So, I've had conversations, several in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just, the goal here is to level the playing field, number one, so that anyone applying for a city contract or applying for a tax incentive to do something is dealing with the same situation as anyone else. So we're leveling the playing field, number one. Number two, also to make sure that those people that are doing the work are granted all the legal protections that they should be, and that while we want to have competitive bidding, we want competitive bidding based on following all the laws, and that if we in fact know of contractors who have violated state laws, city laws, or construction contracts, or have violated labor laws, that we have a penalty that would prohibit them from city contracts and/or from getting a tax incentive to construct. I mean, the goal here is fairness. The goal here is to pay a living wage and to make sure that nobody providing that labor is being taken advantage of.
Thank you. Thank you. I think last time we were here, we were looking to consider some legal language. And Jeffrey, forgive me, I thought you had printed them out. Yeah, let's do it that way.
I just want to ask a clarifying question.
Sure.
So I just want to be sure, through the chair to the maker, Mayor Murphy, Council Murphy, he wears so many hats.
Or
these
Terry.
days.
Terry's good.
Terry, that this is inclusive of all employees. We're not carving out certain groups. Our goal is to make it a level playing ground for all. And that if a contractor is a bona fide independent contractor, then they can put themselves forth in the market in that way. It's to protect the people who are not
Yeah.
truly independent contractors,
Yeah,
right?
As long as they are following all the procedures and
Right.
yes, and are
Okay.
living up. I know, and I won't mention any names, but obviously Attorney General just had a case
Well, yes, we just read
recently.
about that.
So I mean, those are the kind of things we want to make sure are not part of the bidding process in the city and are not part of a contract or a subcontractor
Right.
hiring employees and then taking advantage. I mean, while I've had conversations, I've actually had a few specifics where people have said that to me, persons who have done the work and then found out they weren't getting paid what they were told they were getting paid. So, so those are the kind of contractors I want to make sure that they understand that we are not going to allow that in Holyoke.
Okay, thank you.
So we're joined by Lisa Clausen and Charlie Payne from Local 336 Carpenters. And I think you had sent over multiple drafts last time, and I think Jeffrey's here trying to pull up the most appropriate draft to work off of. And I know that we had talked about eliminating some of these whereases in the beginning, so I don't know if this is the best one to look at, or if you have a recommendation for which one we should jump to, or if it's just the bottom section here.
I did send in a draft that took out the whereases, as was
I
asked.
remember that.
And I believe there's another change or two that was made to it. I have a paper copy of that
If you,
one.
is it only one though?
We have two.
Yeah, if you have the ability to make photocopies, that would be great. I think we had trouble
Yeah,
connecting to
I
the
can't
printer.
work off a screen for language.
And from so far away.
I can read it, but I I just want to make sure whatever ordinance we create, it includes all employees.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, I can't see it, but Counselor Hernandez or Counselor Anderson Burgos, if you can see, can you just let us know if we have somebody from the legal department on the call with us?
No.
Maybe City of Holyoke is somebody from, yeah.
Oh, City of Holyoke, yes, I'm sorry.
We'll recognize City of Holyoke. Who's with us this evening?
Hi, Jenna Wellhoff here.
Hi, Jenna. Thanks for joining us. I hope that you have a copy of the, maybe I could find it and send it to you through the phone.
Do you have the original or the changed copy, Jenna?
Jeffrey had sent several copies to my email, so I'm just pulling them up and seeing which one is the correct one to use right now.
Yeah, there was a draft on 5/26/21, and it's got Holyoke as the primary city that we received, that I thought was pretty much what I was looking to accomplish. But
So you've had a chance to,
yeah, and it does specifically, talks about the contractor shall maintain all insurance. The contractor shall properly classify employees as employees rather than independent contractors, and treat them accordingly to the purposes for prevailing wages and overtime, workers' compensation, unemployment. The contractor shall comply with Mass General laws and with respect to payment of wages. The contractor shall not discriminate against citizens of states other than Massachusetts, but however, they shall give preference to residents of Holyoke. So it's sort of similar.
Can we just make sure that Jenna has that version in front of her? If not, Jenna, I do have it here, so I could send it to you if you need help locating it. But it does say draft May 25th on top or draft Holyoke wage. Oh, it says draft 26, sorry, 5/26.
5/26, yeah.
so if I may, through the chair to Terry. So are we defining people in terms of groups, or are we defining it as employees of the contractor and the?
The only group that's identified here is, well, Holyoke residents
And
is given a definition, and then veterans are given a definition.
And you are an employee. You're not an independent contractor. You would be an employee. So no, I think I'm answering your question. But so the goal is, and I'll defer to the people that have the most experience, but basically some of the independent contractors, subtitled independent contractors, then did not follow through and pay as employees, and they weren't paid properly, and/or did not pay their employees as part of this contract. This would protect all people doing work under this contract as officially employees.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I won't tell you the site, but I had several people that, and I will say, I think they were taken advantage of because of, they had work skills, but not many
They just
legal skills, if you
didn't
will.
know the regs.
Yeah, and they were following things, thinking, okay, I'm gonna get this, and then when the project was done, they were said, oh, well, you know what? You didn't do what we said we were gonna do, we're gonna pay you half of what you got, half of what we told you.
Okay, so just to follow up, Are we only concerned about Holyoke residents because we feel that that's the only thing our ordinance can speak to? Or would it just be anybody working?
It would be
in
anyone
Holyoke?
with a contract with the city
Yeah.
or getting a tax relief contract with the city
Right.
would be, I mean, hopefully everybody's gonna be
And it would
subject
be
to.
all their employees, regardless
Yes.
of whether they lived
And
here or somewhere
contract-
else.
Yes.
So,
Because they're being penalized as a contractor from the city and/or getting a tax relief from the city. So the city is not, if you violate that terms, then you are gonna be prohibited from contracts with the city.
So why don't we,
That's the penalty.
yes.
yeah. Yeah. Why don't we double check? I see Jenna's hand is raised, so I want to make sure that she has access to the document that we're looking at, and if she has any other questions.
And if we're wrong.
Hi, thank you, Councilor Lisi. I do not have that document. The document I have looks like it's dated, I'm trying to pull up the date. I think it's February 2019, so I have an older version, or I might just not be able to locate it. So if you could email it to me so I could make sure I'm following along with the right document, that would be very helpful.
Yes, that's fine. There's no problem at all. So Jenna, are you sure? And will you copy Jenna on it then? Okay, Jeffrey's taking care of that. Libby, can you hear me? Oh, no, I got it.
Yes. I can
Thank
hear
you.
I was going to ask you, Madam Chair, if I may, so the copy that's being shared on the screen, is that the most recent one dated 5/26?
No.
We should take that down.
Okay.
He's looking to replace it. Jeffrey's
Okay,
looking for it
perfect.
and looking to replace it and get a copy over to Jenna as well. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank you.
taking it down in the meantime.
Just to make sure, can we allow, I know they obviously have been encouraged to do this. I know I actually got a communication from the Attorney General's office today about this, so, but if we don't mind, I know there would have input that would, I think, I'm struggling in my explanation, and I think they're gonna give a better explanation, but basically, it's city contracts and tax incentives that if you violate these laws, you will not be able to, and I think it's a 5-year penalty.
Right. So let's entertain a motion to suspend the necessary rules and allow our guest to speak this evening.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. Okay, so again, we have Lisa Clausen and Charlie Payne from the Carpenters Local 336 here. I think you could provide a brief overview, and then hopefully we'll have the draft up there and we could just jump into it, and perhaps you could walk through each section as we go through it.
Sure, why don't I have Charlie give the brief overview, and then I'll start the walkthrough of explanation.
Can you also just give your name and address for the record as public speakers?
Lisa Clausen, I live at 35 Harrison Avenue in Northampton.
And Charlie Payne, I live at 14 Pajack Street, Chicopee, Mass. So the overview that Lisa's talking about is really the wage theft ordinance is to not incentivize tax cheaters and protect workers. And the definitions that we're getting caught up in, these are going to come in a little bit farther down when we start talking about incentivizing people to put Holyoke residents to work and make put more tax money back into the base of Holyoke. But really, these municipal protection are we call them wage theft ordinances, and they really protect the workers, and they just make sure the contractors and developers are following the rules that are already on the books. As we see, this is a pervasive problem, and construction is probably one of the worst industries that this happens, but it happens in every industry, and it opened my eyes at how shocking it is in the restaurant and retail workers. But the victims of these crimes that get ripped off we talk about misclassified employees. A legitimate independent contractor should have workers' comp. They should have liability insurance. But when I go on a job and there's 18 people working for one drywall contractor and everybody's an independent contractor, there's something wrong there. It's because they don't want to pay workers' comp, they don't want to pay unemployment insurance, they don't want to pay liability insurance, and they're circumventing the law. And we don't, this happens in so many cases. I'm working on 2 wage theft cases right now myself, and some of the people are victims. Other people are hand in hand working with the contractor so that they could collect unemployment while making cash on a prevailing wage job. And it really hurts. They're not paying any taxes, and they're also collecting, I think it was $1,300 a week unemployment. And they wholeheartedly knew what they were doing. It undermines fair contractors that want to come in and give the city what they're paying for. You're paying a premium to have a new school, police station, anything built, new city hall. You're paying for that. For the contractors to cheat the workers, and it's usually it's not established people. It's young people. It's vulnerable people. The people that can least defend themselves that are taken advantage of, and they don't have the same opportunity for enforcement that I do, or members of Local 336 do. These laws are already in the books. Just make sure that the contractors and developers do things right. We don't give them tax breaks to come into the city and cheat workers. And as we get farther down and we start talking about the veterans, the city residents, the people of color, these are some of the most vulnerable people that I've talked about. And in the ordinance that Lisa drafted, we can give, if we choose, Springfield does it with their REO, we can give city residents a priority to go to work. It opens up the opportunity for people to move into the middle class from a lower economic scale. They can move into a better life for themselves, reinvest in their city, reinvest in themselves and their families, and move forward. Now we can't violate any federal laws. If a company is from Connecticut or New Hampshire, they may bring their workforce with them, and that's totally legal. We can't what is the
Interstate Commerce.
The Interstate Commerce Commission won't allow you to say, okay, you have to have 40% Holyoke residents. But if they do need to hire somebody, it would be nice if they gave an opportunity somebody, and we've seen it in other towns where we do have requirements, and the same contractor will show up numerous times, and they'll do 5 jobs in one city, and say, well, on this one job, we never saw a need to hire somebody. But then you find out they're hiring somebody from Manpower, and they could have put the same Holyoke resident to work for over a year on the 5 jobs in a row that they did, but instead they chose not to. Now, is that illegal? No, it's not, as long as they pay them the right wage. Is it the right way to move a town and people forward? Probably not. It isn't. And I guess I'm off. That's my.
Thank you.
If
I
you'd
think
like, I could walk us.
You want to
through
ask a
this.
question, Councilor Elise?
I'll wait.
This ordinance is modeled on some other communities who have passed similar ordinances. So Springfield has, Easthampton has, Amherst, Worcester, other places in the region. And they have just definitions up front, and so that's why it shows you there. It affects everybody, but later it says, it talks about Holyoke residents, and so that's where we define it, and veterans. But essentially what this ordinance does, section 1 is definitions, section 2 covers municipal contracts, and it's basically saying here are provisions to put in any contract that we're issuing for construction work. These are all provisions that are following state law, so it's not setting any new precedent, but by putting it in the contract, we have found that where it happens, it's putting the developer, the contractor on notice that the city is paying attention to these provisions, and the contractor is signing that, yes, I accept these terms. So again, it's all, as it states, following different state laws there. Point 7 is one that I had changed from the, point 6 is the one that references residents of Holyoke. So under section 2, provision 6, it says, the contractor shall not discriminate against citizens of other states, which is the point Charlie was making. But when they are hiring residents of Massachusetts, they shall give preference to residents of Holyoke. Now, there's no penalty later for them not doing that. There's no percentage number they have to give. The city of Springfield, for example, says 35% residents of Springfield. So they're giving out money. They want to see local jobs are being created. This one just says preference, so it's just essentially saying that they need to make a good faith effort to hire local residents. It then on point 7, previously we had spelled out specific percentages for people of color and women, which are two areas of people that have not had equal access to construction jobs. What we say here is just meet the diversity goals equal to what the state of Massachusetts has. So we took out the percentages, so we took out the definitions as well, because it's now just meeting the employment diversity goals that the state already has for women and for people of color. And then it also adds that the contractor shall strive to hire veterans. So that piece has been added by different communities to just respect the service that veterans have given us. So those are the changes that were made to it. The other provisions, again, have to do with bidding and, meeting the different health requirements that the state already requires. It does have a blank here for on provision number 11 and also number 3 of what municipal office do they provide this information to. And it's not looking for the city to have to hire compliance officers, and we understand the city does not have the capacity and the means to do that, but it's, the city does already collect public records of information, and so it adds this to the public record. So if someone were to challenge it and to take a look at there was wage theft that happened on a job, it can go and pull up the public record that this was signed. So that's what section 2 deals with. Section 3 is essentially a very similar version, but just where it's giving out tax relief. And so where tax relief is executed, it's again in provision A saying this shall be a condition of that agreement, and it would put these different provisions into the agreement for tax relief. So a developer who is asking for tax relief from the City of Holyoke would be agreeing to ensure its contractors are meeting all of these obligations and not engaging in wage theft. And then finally, it just, the end piece of it, of each, is just what happens if there is wage theft that is found. And with tax relief under provision B, it says that the city could choose to petition back for some of that tax relief. So it's up for the city to, make a determination based on what happened, what facts emerge, and if there's found to have engaged in wage theft, a contractor under the project, the city could choose or choose not to ask for that funding back from what the developer had received. These ordinances are very similar to what's been done in other communities in terms of the legal counsel. We shared some of those copies, which have been legally reviewed in those places. We have also, the Attorney General's office is the office that does compliance of going after wage theft, of investigating wage theft for the most part. There are some other divisions. The Department of Labor does some. The Accidents and Insurance Department does some oversight of workers' compensation. But the Attorney General is the main one that investigates wage theft. The challenge, though, is that they have limited capacity. So they get, the Attorney General issues a report every Labor Day, and the last year's report cited over 12,000 cases of wage theft that were submitted. The amount of cases that their office investigated was in the hundreds. They received back many millions of dollars for workers, but they're limited. They're not going to be able to go after every single case, this is just, helping add to some protections against what the Attorney General is doing by saying, we don't want to have money the city is spending to be used in any way that aids wage theft. And the Attorney General's office has come out in supporting municipal action and saying that it adds to what her office is able to do. So thank you.
And to add to Lisa's comment, from my experience, 1 out of 4 cases that I found go to the Attorney General are actually investigated or and the ones that are the most active that we get the most feedback are the ones prevailing public work, which have certified payrolls and the records to back them up. It's very difficult for somebody on a private project, and we've seen people go months waiting for paychecks or get small, to recoup that money. It's extremely difficult. I can't estimate, but I know it's way less than 1 in 4 cases where people bring it forward that they get the Attorney General action.
Okay, thank you so much for that overview and walkthrough of the ordinance here. Councilor Murphy, Acting Mayor Murphy, did we decide through the previous conversation if it should be the clerk or the purchasing director who would be sort of the record keeper?
I think the early part of our discussion was it would go to the purchasing because they're the ones that are awarding contracts for the most part. If it's a city contract, they would have the record of the contractor that's signing for it. They would not be necessarily the investigative party, if you will, or however you want to say it. Obviously, if we did it and we had people coming with complaints, then it would be for the city at that point. And I don't think I don't think the purchasing director would make a unilateral ruling, but would probably come before the city council or the mayor and the city council to bring up that there's been a complaint filed against this company, and then we would move forward from there. It would certainly not be, we got a complaint, so we got to stop dealing with that company. There would be a legitimate process that we would have to go through, but the documents, the agreements would be within the purchasing department.
I would like to, I hear you looking to get recognized, but I do want to ask, can you speak to the process? Like if there was a complaint, how would that play out? So it seems like we would have somewhere in City Hall collecting, all the documents along the way. And if there was a complaint, where is that process?
So generally the complaint would still be handled by the Attorney General or by the appropriate state department that would oversee it. So it would not be an expectation that the city would have to do that investigation that's beyond your ability. But it does allow for, the city could choose to hold a hearing if you know that there's an investigation going on where you could then, look into the issue. But it would still be, complaints would be going through the state. It does have a provision on page 6, for example, on provision 14. It's probably on 14 on the other one as well. 14, that complaints concerning compliance and qualifications of conditions. So that would be if there's a contractor bidding, that there's a question that they've had previously problems with it, that would be submitted to whatever office is doing, to some municipal office to be able to lodge that there is consider a concern.
And I still think that would be the purchasing director in this case. Okay. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I have to say, I find some irony in the portion of this that talks about requiring a contractor to give preference to residents of Holyoke when the city of Holyoke is recently taking votes to eliminate the requirement that certain positions in the city are filled by people who live in the city. So we, in this instance, are saying to a private business who they should hire, while we're sitting here looking at ourselves saying we should not have to hire people from Holyoke. I find that a contradiction, and I find that something difficult to support. The other legal advice that we've consistently been given is that if we're looking to hire a person from Holyoke instead of somebody from another community, we could only give them preference if they were equally qualified for the job. This is not saying that. This is saying that if you want to contract with us, Holyoke, you shall give preference to people. I think that's a violation of the law, at least as an employer in the past and as a counselor have been advised consistently. So I have a problem with that language for more than one reason. I think we can say encourage. Shall is a legal term that requires an action in a legal document, and this is being proposed as a law in the city of Holyoke. And I just don't, I think it's a discriminatory statement within the ordinance. So I just don't, personally, I could not support that language. We can have goals, we can have that. Now, also to hold a contractor, and I'm all for people needing to have a fair playing ground and follow the laws. I'm warm to that concept. However, to require a contractor on a job to meet goals set by a state for the state is a bridge too far. You can't take a made-up goal for an entire state and bring it down to as small a thing as a contract and say to the contractor, you've got to meet these state goals. I just don't find that reasonable. I think it's going to limit people even trying to compete for jobs here, and it's going to jack up all the costs for the contracts to the city. Because what happened to us with, as an example, our sewer project that we put out to bid, in that project, we said, you have to hire all the people that work here. Do you know how many bids we got? 1. When you make something too hard to do, you limit your pool of people to do anything. And I just think some of the things in here are a bridge too far. I totally am supportive of the fairness, the equity, for everybody who's working. But these other sort of arbitrary things, I just think, I guess I don't think they meet the fairness test. And let me just say, the city has a track record of almost zero on compliance with things of this nature. I mean, we have a book this thick of ordinances, and we have very few of them that are enforced. So if we're going to create something, I'd like it to be enforceable. I really think as the holder of records, it should be the clerk's office that any required filings would go to. The procurement office is not a holder of records. Really, it's our clerk's office that is the holder of records. You know, if you ever had to go back for a suit or whatever. But I mean, I think we should talk with our departments further on this, and I think we should look at the notion of weekly submissions and who's going to be handling those. The only office that has enough people to handle it that I see is the clerk's office. I don't see procurement handling, if we have theoretically a school project, a rehab all these projects going on, I don't even see people there to handle the paperwork, never mind review it. So I just think we need to make it doable if we're going to do it too.
Okay.
So that's my take on it at the moment. I think we could make it workable,
If I can.
you know,
Yep.
but those are just some areas I think we need to work on a little.
And
So I just want to recognize, we're going to have Counselor Murphy respond to the questions that came up, but I do have Counselor Hernandez and Anderson Burgos in queue following that.
yeah, my goal in this is not to provide preference, and if eliminating that means we get the wage theft part in there, that's my first goal. I mean, I just do not want contractors to be able to submit a bid, get accepted, because they know they're gonna cheat.
Right.
And now they're getting a bid by basically taking away from their workers. That's my goal. Our authority, and the only reason I say, where it actually would end up is fine. Wherever we can go that makes it an official record. But I know my thought with purchasing, and I had met with Lori way back, it's been a while, was because all those bids are going through the purchasing department. And I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive she pretty much has a database of all of those contractors that have come
All
through.
right.
I
mean,
could
I
be
would
wrong.
defer, but
could
I would
be
just
wrong.
want to check it out.
Yeah, and I know she did say to me, there's no way she can be out there investigating them, but it's not so much that she's going to investigate as much as you've indicated that you are not going to be doing these things, and now we've got evidence that you are, and now you are no longer, once we got that proof, then you are no longer going to be able to bid, and I believe it's a 5-year suspension, if you will. So if you cheat, and you wanted to be doing business, and we're building a new school, and you cheat, or we're building a new sewer line and you cheat, then you're basically eliminating yourself for the next 5 years, because we giving you a contract, and/or you're building something and we're giving you a tax break for 5 years, and in doing it, again, you're cheating in order to improve your profitability while taking away. That's my goal.
I get it.
So I'm not locked into the preferences as much as I'm locked into the fairness, and whatever we do, if we're assigning a contract, we got to know that those people, and if we get complaints, then I agree, it goes to the Attorney General, just like it did in this
Right,
past case.
and I would just caution us on whatever we implement, it has to be doable.
Yep.
Because if we have this pretty ordinance sitting in a book, and nobody's even tracking if the stuff is coming in, never mind if it's right,
Yep.
then it's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
And who's gonna have the time to be, making sure, I mean, I don't know, today, how many contractors do we have
A lot,
in the city? 50? 20?
right,
But I mean,
a lot.
okay, so if we have that many,
Yeah.
the first thing I picture us hearing is we need another person. So,
Yeah.
but, okay.
But I
Thank you.
do want to make the point clear that Councilor Murphy is saying here, that it's just receiving the documents. There's not any requirement to review them. It's just that they're documented somewhere and available should an investigation from the Attorney General's be opened up.
Right,
So
right,
it's-
but somebody has to make sure 50 contractors are sending in 50 payrolls every week.
That has to be done anyways for prevailing wage requirements, so it's not a new paperwork requirement. It's
In the
already.
city?
But it's not
Yes,
com-
for
it's
the
not com-
city, for spending city funds, it requires prevailing wages and certified payrolls to be submitted as a result of prevailing wage.
So
On
who's
public
getting
work,
them
they
now
have to
then,
be-
Terry?
That's got to, I'm,
We don't know? Okay.
Most municipalities have the clerk as the official keeper of
Okay,
records.
okay.
There's a few like Chicopee that has each department as the
Oh, okay.
keeper of their own records, but usually it's in the Commonwealth, it's the clerk.
So you think our clerk probably already has it?
It's usually electronic records, so it
Okay.
goes into a file and
Okay.
it's not reviewed. The value, though, of having it, and we agree wholeheartedly on not having it be just a paper ordinance that gets passed that doesn't do anything, is that it does provide the tool for if a case comes forward or if an organization like ours or some other organization hears of something, that there's a place they can go and look at those records and review them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I agree with Councilor Bacon on many important points that she made, such as the one that talks about the requirement of the Holyoke residents only. Maybe that can be modified to say preferred Holyoke residents, because I know that we have sometimes difficulty ourselves in trying to locate, talent within our city to fill vacancies. And then another thing that I wanted to ask as a question, without mentioning names of, Councilor Murphy mentioned was that there was an article of a person that was being sought out and actually fined by the Attorney General's office. And so, for example, if that person, which owns property here in Holyoke and businesses, was actively had a contract with the city and was caught in wage theft, how do we go about that, like to enforce, how do we stop him from, I know that the investigation is done by the Attorney General's office, but us as a city, as a municipality, how do we stop a person like that from continuing the law that he's breaking with the current contract? Let's say if that happens, how do we use this document to stop a contractor from continuing the abuse?
Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. So this document just covers construction contracts. So if he or somebody were to violate and engage in wage theft on a city construction contract or even a private construction contract, this ordinance, as Councilor Murphy said, has a 5-year look back. So they would have to sign an affidavit in accepting the contract that they have not had a wage theft complaint filed with a state agency, or not a complaint, but upheld, a finding over the last 5 years for them to be able to get that work. Some other cities and towns have done ordinances that have also tied wage theft provisions to business licenses, and said that when you come up for renewal of your business license, there's an examination of wage theft record and some repercussions if there have been wage theft. This ordinance currently does not do that. So I know that the recent case was not around construction, but around hospitality.
Right.
Thank you.
Are you all set? Okay. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, so I also agree with Councilor Bacon. There's a lot of concerns and a lot of unanswered questions. So I would like to make a motion to table this so that we are able to look into this further. If anybody wants to.
Eventually, I'll second
Second?
that.
Yeah.
Well,
If you have more questions, that's my motion, and we can hold off, but I feel like we need to look a little bit more deep into this. I'm worried about the kind of impact it would have on a community like Holyoke. As Councilor Bacon mentioned, there are concerns there, and I really want to look a little deeper into this before we move forward.
So
That's it.
I didn't hear a second just yet.
Councilor Hernandez did say.
Oh, Counselor Hernandez, you did second it? Sorry.
Yes.
So the motion to table is not debatable. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. Okay,
so the motion is tabled so that we can look at these
Yeah.
things and
Let's
get some
move-
answers
let's
before our
move
next meeting.
Legal, clerk, and purchasing for
Well,
the next one.
So I'd like to motion that we reconsider our action so that we could figure out a course of action for what we would like to see happen between now and then, instead of just tabling it.
We can still do that.
Yeah.
No,
Second.
the motion is
Second.
back on the table, so we don't really
Good.
have.
But we can talk about what we're going to do next with it.
Right.
No, I would say it's on the table, so it's not up for discussion anymore. So a motion to reconsider our actions.
I'll reconsider my action.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, so I think we're 90% of the way there. And what we need to do is at least figure out if the keeper of records is going to be the purchasing director or the city clerk.
Or it may be multiple. But let's bring those people, let's bring them in, and as we get through contracts, so we can, all right, we've had a contract. As things go, where is the official record? And where is that kept? So we know that. But I do think, I I think streamlining this and making it primarily aimed at wage theft as opposed to preferences and things along that lines, I think, I mean, that's my major goal as a filer of this, was to make sure that all contractors live up to standards, workers' comp, fair hourly wage, insurance, liability, all those kind of things. That's, to me, that's the goal. That protects the employees. That's the most important thing that we're trying to do, and it creates fairness in the contracting or the bidding process. And if they violate it, the penalty is, we know about it, we hear about it, the Attorney General takes it up, finds it, there's a 5-year suspension, and the city would need to act. I will tell you, I did get contacted from the Attorney General's office today, so clearly they want to let you know if you're local.
I'd like to just make a few points. First of all, I do want to say that I think that the language here to give preference, I think it mirrors the exact language that we just put into our cannabis special permit conditions, for example, where we just said, give preference to Holyoke residents. We want at least 30% local hires. We also want to give preference to security jobs for retired Holyoke Police Department or law enforcement that previously lived or that presently live in the city. So I don't see that being very different than those sorts of conditions that we just put on our special permit. Additionally, when it comes to like the sewer contract, for example, I think we received only one bid because there really is only 1 or 2 vendors that service Western Massachusetts. It's Aquarian, Suez, and I think one other.
That wasn't true 15 years ago, though.
So, I think it's difficult to say that, when we narrow the field in this way, that we start to drive up costs. Again, it just says we shall give preference. And I mean, I think it's nice to have that language in there. It doesn't say that they must be hired. It just says, we should give preference. Like when all other things are equal, we should give preference to Holyoke residents. And then the point that was made regarding the diversity goals that the state has regarding women and people of color, I would be of the opinion that the state can't meet its diversity goals unless individual municipalities are working to do their share to help the state meet the diversity goals. And so really they should be mirroring at the local level those state diversity goals, and that's why they're not specific. It just says we're working to support the state in achieving its diversity goals. And then again, it seems that the prevailing wage law is creating the obligation to submit this sort of paperwork on a weekly basis as it is. We're just collecting it and having it accessible for whenever an investigation is initiated. And the penalties to contractors are not in place unless there's an actual finding, as far as I understand. So it's not just that there is a complaint, but there has to be a finding. And I think that's very fair. And the main intent of the ordinance in that sense is that it serves as, it disincentivizes cheating, because the penalties are so severe if there is a finding that it reduces in my opinion, the willingness that any contractor may have in terms of taking on the risk of cheating the system. So those are my opinions. Again, I think that we're 90% there. I think we need to figure out some bits about the clerk versus the purchasing director. Jenna, if you've had this draft in front of you, I don't know how much work this needs to be done, but it would be great to have a draft legal form that would fit into our ordinance book at the next meeting, and then we could just make these minor changes regarding the clerk, purchasing director, and anything else minor that would come along.
Can I be recognized?
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So since we still have this on the table, I'm wondering about item 11. If people are already submitting it to meet the prevailing wage, why do we have specific language that otherwise references laws and requirements, but in number 11, it doesn't.
This is section 211.
Page 3.
Thank you.
I mean, most of the rest of the document references law. This seems to have a whole different definition, yet we're told it's already submitted. If it is, then can we just say it the same way?
I can answer that. So it has to do with whether or not it is including meeting the state's diversity goals for construction contracts. And so prevailing, the certified payrolls do not tabulate currently female or people of color or residents of the town, or they actually do have address, so you would have that already. It just adds those two categories. So that certified payrolls are currently submitted for all employees as a part of prevailing wage, but not those two categories.
So this would be a new additional thing for the contractors.
It would,
Thank you.
The tabulation.
No, it would be a new additional reporting requirement that they would have to figure out how to comply with.
Anyone else? I see a hand from Jenna as our legal staff. So, Jenna, you're recognized.
Hi, thank you. I just want to make sure that legal is aware of what you're requiring. You want this to be sent to legal form for the next ordinance meeting, correct?
Yeah, and I don't think that we would be able to take this up even on the 20. Oh, you know what, we're meeting on the 29th also. So next week on the 29th, we could potentially review this in legal form. I think it's just converting it, if you have the ability and the capacity to do that in your office for next Tuesday, to convert this so that it has the proper, like, ordinance number and sections, that would be welcome.
But I think we have about 4 or 5 areas that we should come to a recommendation about from the committee to give to legal. We're supposed to let legal know what we want them to draft. And we need to, I think, make some changes to this language before we ask her to do work and then have to redo it. I just think we're all looking at this particular draft tonight, and I think people have asked for time to look it over, get some feedback from various places,
Yeah.
which I think is reasonable.
I think that's valid too.
So-
Because we haven't, I mean, I've had it, but other counselors haven't had it, and I think that's more than fair. And obviously, we're not gonna potentially take a vote at city council till August 3rd anyway, so we would have another meeting in July. And
Well,
that would give legal more time too.
Right, we just, I don't anticipate us being able to take it up at the July meeting. And so the only other time that I would see us having the time to take it up before August 3rd, is the 29th, next week. Otherwise, it would be pushed off until September. I mean, and we can do that too.
Yeah. I mean, we've been working on it. I just want to make sure we're all okay with it. We get it. So if it ended up being the first meeting in September for a final vote, we're still moving forward on it. I think that would be fine. I just
Motion
want
to table.
Well, can I just,
Second.
Hold on, wait,
hold off on them.
recognizing Council
Yeah.
Bartley.
So,
My motion.
okay, so first of all, thank you both for being here and your input. There's a lot of important things. I guess at some point, and I don't want to belabor this meeting any longer, but it sounds like, who do you represent? You represent a union?
Yeah, the Carpenters Union.
Carpenter, and did you say you have investigatory powers?
No, I don't have
And do you have enforcement powers?
I don't have enforcement powers. What I do is I utilize the Freedom of Information Act to request information, and then I will submit a claim for people to the Attorney General on their I'll help them file the complaint.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so you're serving as an advocate. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Okay. All right, just through the chair to the acting mayor, Terry, respectfully, and I sincerely mean that. Let's just look at this objectively. This is a wonderful document, but is presented to you by a union advocate. I would humbly suggest that if in fact you want to have a fair perspective, that you might want to talk to somebody on the other side of this debate. Now, I don't know who that would be. I'm frankly, I don't think Chamber of Commerce people have a whole lot of
Contractor.
firepower behind them to perhaps give his perspective. But there may be the Associated Industries of Massachusetts comes to mind right now. There may be an organization that would be willing to review it from the employee contractor side and to say, City of Holyoke, these are the points in here that are terrific and the industry can support. These are the other parts that maybe you might want to consider because industry would be less likely to come to Holyoke. Certainly, there are matters that are of questions of law are non-debatable. I mean, if it's the law, it's got to stay in here, and any contractor worth its salt would comply. One of the things I find in here that I'm really interested in is this debarment or suspension list. Does that exist? Is there a list of so that's a database, I would assume.
Yes.
Right, it's a data, and is that public record?
Yes.
Okay, so whomever it is, if we're going to do this ordinance, then we should certainly, within the language itself, we should direct either the procurement officer, and it should be in our procurement bidding documents. I would imagine it's in there, but I don't know that to be true because I don't generally see our procurement documents, but I would hope that any kind of debarment language and suspension language is really clear. If you, dear bidder, are applying, you better verify in writing that you haven't been disbarred or debarred, whatever it is, in the last certain period of time. And then furthermore, we shouldn't just say, we should just designate a specific department to look at that. That's very serious. And so I would really encourage us to make this language owned by a department head and coordinated. Ultimately, it falls on the mayor, right? Because the mayor is going to sign the contracts. But maybe it should say the mayor or his or her designee, however it is you want it, so you can keep that loose. Because that's really important language, Terry.
Okay.
I think, and that's just me getting through only a part of this. Just one other thing, just to our guests. Paragraph A10, the contractor must be in compliance with health and hospitalization requirements of Mass Health Care Reform Law 58. What is that really saying? Is that saying that they provide health insurance? What are we saying with that?
It's the state's law. They provide health insurance if they're over a certain size. If they're below a certain size, they don't, but they have to follow the state's laws on submitting their information about whether they're providing the health insurance for their employees or not.
Okay, so anybody in this industry would already they'd be aware of that. So this is
Part of what's
it's new to me,
similar
but
to the others on state law. Yeah.
Okay, so people that are professional contractors, they'd be aware of this, and they would. Okay, and then the other parts about the weekly, I'd heard that before, so I assumed it was all electronic filing anyhow, that you don't have to bundle up everything and carry it into the. Okay, so electronic filing, that which makes a lot of sense. And the one part I really like, and I want to drill down into this, because it makes me sick. And we haven't done it now in 6 years. But the last time we took a vote to give property tax abatement, I took the vote and I even said it on the floor. I said, I know we're all going to go along with this. I'm going to vote for it, but I know I'm not going to be happy about it. It's to give a 10-year tax break to a company that's on Appleton Street. And his first letter starts with A. And they've been in the city double-digit years, haven't paid a nickel of property tax. Can you imagine? Now, we're grateful they're here, and we're grateful that they have a business in Holyoke. That's wonderful. But I mean, you got to pitch in at some point. So this language in, what's that, B? No, section 3, that language, I could even see us being tougher on them. I'm never going to take a vote again to give a property tax abatement, or not abatement, to TIF. That's what, tax increment financing. That's what it is. We used to get that thrown at us regularly by Mr. Marrero, who we just praised earlier. But he constantly threw that. Oh yeah, these are great. These, I was a little naive earlier on in my career. Well, I'm not now. And that has not even been suggested in the last 6 years in this body. I know other communities do it, the TIFs and whatever it is, but I don't see us doing it. However, if we are going to do it, and a vendor comes in and gets that benefit, and then turns around and disobeys whatever it is that's in here, I would love to see this be thrown right back at him, and the city have some kind of enforcement powers, really almost at the local level. But I don't even know if that's. I mean, do you see what our problem is? We have to, just like you do, we'd have to funnel it up through the AG's office. What a headache that is. I mean, I wish it wouldn't be nice if there was some kind of enforcement power at the municipal level. I mean, you want us to take this on, but yet if we got to do anything, we have to kick it back up to Moore Healy? I mean, why don't we advocate for something at the local level to give local solicitors the power to take these scofflaws to district court or to whatever the administrative law agency is? I don't know. So that's something I wish you would consider somewhere down the road. So that's it. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion that we table and bring in the various departments that we need to get information on and just fine tune the ordinance.
Motion has been made and seconded to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
And you got front row seats?
Well, they're better than those benches.
You think those are comfortable seats? When I get up after these meetings, I
chairs are
can't
great.
walk.
Those benches are horrible.
Okay.
Hey, Terry, hey, can we use the ARPA money for a little, maybe cushions or something, or a?
No, you are not allowed to use that for cushions.
Or a back brace?
Yeah, I could hear you there. That is a health issue.
It is.
So the remainder of the items on the agenda are related to traffic, and we have a review report from our engineer. So I would entertain a motion that we suspend the necessary rules and take up items number 4 through 12 as a package. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. They're as a package. I'll read them off, and then we could just go through them one by one with the report from the engineer. So item number 4 is filed by Councilor Hernandez, that no parking on the S-shaped curve turn on O'Connor Ave. That no parking be designated on the S-shaped curve turn on O'Connor Ave. Item 5 is filed by Councilor Bartley, that the DPW install a stop sign at the end of Ridgeway Street where it meets Lorraine Street. 6 is filed by LeBron Martinez, that the City Council, through the appropriate committee, consider a drop and pickup for 2 parking spots for the van that will pick up and drop off participants at the V-Care Adult at the address of 200 to 210 High Street. It's a program that serves a population of 60 and older, and it's necessary to assure their safety. Item 7 is filed by Councilor Bartley, that large vehicles be banned from the following public ways: Hillside.
Yeah, reading.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
A through N.
A through N. Petition for a speed hump at Argyle Ave. Item number 9 is a petition from residents of Michigan Ave for speed bumps. And item 10 is filed by Tallman, Leahy, McGee, that the DPW install a truck exclusion sign at both ends of Bemis Road. Hernandez for number 11, that a handicap sign be removed from the front of 143 Oak Street. And item number 12, filed by Council Bartley, the DPW and Disabilities Commission remove the handicap parking sign in front of 7 Russell Terrace. Under discussion, we turn things over to our city engineer, Mr. Parent.
Good evening.
Good
I'll try to
evening.
move through these as efficiently as I can. The first item was originally filed at a February 10th Public Safety Committee meeting. Recommendations were made in terms of restricting parking along the S curve. I believe Fire Chief or maybe it was Captain Kavanagh was involved in that meeting as well, and I believe he agreed with what would be necessary in terms of restricting parking in order to get the fire department ladder truck around that curve. So the next step was then put it in front of this committee to actually make the restrictions into an ordinance. I did meet with Councilor Hernandez out there a week or two ago. We took a look at the locations, and what I've done is basically take what has been presented at public safety and put that into an ordinance format right now. What that would mean is that we would be losing 3 to 4 parking spaces on the outside of the curve and 2 to 3 parking spaces on the inside of the curve if those locations were posted no parking.
Thank you. Councilor Hernandez, as the maker of the order, do you want to add anything to this? Have you had a chance to connect with any residents about it?
Well, yes. I mean, it has been a long concern of the residents there that emergency vehicles, large vehicles cannot get through, and they have to reverse back out, which is another, right? And imposes another safety issue. And I know that there's, limited parking, but the priority is to be able to have our safety vehicles be able to get to the destination in case of an emergency. So that tops off any other, concerns there. And although it's going to create initially, some type of rearrangement and adjustment from the residents there, I think that on the long run, it's really going to, serve that we can ensure that in emergencies that our vehicles can get there rapidly, safely, and that they can fit through and get where they need to go without causing a bigger disruption.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments? Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, I mean, public safety always trumps citizen concern, but boy, that's a really tight street with almost no parking, and I didn't hear an alternative at this point as to where they're going to park. So good luck to the Ward 4 councilor who comes along and gets all the feedback following your wake so about the parking situation. And by the way, I would have asked the captain, if there's a fire here, can you go in the other way? I mean, is there another way of egress into this street? I would have liked to hear from the captain as to what his alternatives would be for quality of life stuff. I mean, they do it all the time. We just had the fire department, and I'm not. This is respectfully, okay? So I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but they do this exact same thing with what we felt was a reasonable resolution behind Scott's auto sales, Williams Auto Sales. Well, they just shot it down. No, can't do it. Can't lock the gate. Well, you don't live there, Chief. You don't live there, Captain. You don't have the people running through there doing drugs and all the rest of that stuff. Well, can't lock it down. Just can't do it. So you know what their feeling is going to be. Well, we got to get our pumpers through there, and no matter what. I'm just saying, Libby, that I'll vote for it because you want to support it. But I'm just, I'm saying if you thought it out, you thought it out. But you can push back on the fire department too. It's not like they don't run the city. I mean, they run their department, but they don't run the city. So I would just say to think that out a little bit. I'm sure you have, but it's a tough one. Thank you.
No, I mean, and just to add to that, I mean, I've been in contact with residents there. I mean, and to add, there was through special permit, we did allow for a driveway, which is in close proximity for a person with disabilities. So now that freed up a few parking spots there. Not that it's not going to create, because there's going to be less parking spaces. So it's going to be a burden either way that we put it. But I think that because of the public safety and by all means, the fire department, I mean, they were not, and that's a one way there. So I don't know if they can necessarily come through the other way. I mean, it's difficult enough to exit that street. Once you get to the other side, I mean, God bless you if you can make it out safe and make that left turn, because you hardly can't see the vehicles that are coming down. That's another issue. So, I mean, I think that it's going to be worse if something happens and the fire truck needs to get through and arrive at the place that they need to get, and that they can't do it, and that something that it results in a tragedy, then that's really gonna have lots to talk about, and lots to say about our decision making. But thank you so much, Councilor Bartley, for your input. And I mean, I don't know if our engineer has something else to add, but I strongly would like to see this go forward so we can ensure that our public and emergency vehicles can get through that street.
Councilor Murphy.
I would just add actually that O'Connor is a two-way street, which actually makes the problem more difficult.
Oh, okay, two-way street, I'm sorry.
Parking on both sides of the street. It currently as a two-way street. It's, well, not my attitude. There are trade-offs for everything, and that's why I flagged the loss of parking spaces, is that there will be an impact, but there'll be a benefit. And the question is, does the benefit outweigh the impact?
Just one question, if I might.
Sure, Councilor Murphy.
Bob, would it help if we were able to specifically line parking spaces to avoid having people take up more space and potentially gain several of these back?
I don't think so. Okay. And yeah, I don't think so. I don't believe it's a case of the space being used inefficiently.
Okay.
It's just difficult when you're right at the midpoint of a curve, for instance, and you attempt to park your car right at the midpoint of the curve. Your car doesn't fit there, so it projects a significant way out into the street. Okay. And I don't believe that painting a line there or not will make any difference.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking in the rest of the street that maybe we could, and if not, I mean, just a thought.
It might. I haven't analyzed the street from length to length to see are people efficiently using the spaces or not. So I don't have a firm answer to that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I'm inclined to support the ward counselor in this regard. And I do think the one thing about a situation like this, if we find that the downside of it outweighs what we think is the upside now, the neighbors will make us aware, I'm pretty sure. And it's something that isn't as difficult to undo should the need arise as maybe some other projects might be. So I would support the ward counselor in this regard.
Is there a motion then?
Make a motion.
Councilor Hernandez, do you want a motion that we accept?
I make a motion to have these parking lots, have them no parking, have them assigned as no parking, designated as no parking on the S shape of O'Connor Street.
Per the recommendation of the engineer?
Per the recommendation of the engineer.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded that we eliminate parking per the recommendation of the engineer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I do want to recognize that we are joined by Counselor McGivern. Juan,
Hi, Joe.
did we accurately capture your vote there as a 5-0 vote, or were you?
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No.
Oh, I said yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Mr. Parent, do you want to talk about the recommendation for item 5?
Certainly. Normally, my starting point on a request for installing a stop sign is taking a look at accident reports at the intersection in question. I did make that request of the police department and haven't as of yet received the information. However, I did take a look at that intersection. And even without that, a couple of things I wanted to call to your attention. One is that all the cross streets on Lorraine Street currently have stop signs. So as you look up and down Lorraine Street, there are stop signs on each one of the cross streets. Although Ridgeway Street is not a cross street, it feels like a cross street because it's so close to the end of Lorraine Street that as you come down the hill, basically the outlet to Lorraine Street is right in front of you. So the tendency is to want to go through that intersection unless your attention is called to the fact that you shouldn't go through the intersection. Again, similar to what you have on a cross street. If you don't have a stop sign there, it may be unclear as to whether or not you go straight through or you have to stop first. So, taking account those things, taking account the fact that it's as close to the Lorraine Street Homestead intersection as it is, taking account the fact that you've got a relatively steep hill, I do, even without accident reports that would support it, would recommend that a stop sign be installed at that location.
I make a motion, we accept this engineer's recommendation and install a stop, and pass an ordinance to install a stop sign.
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded to adopt the engineer's recommendation to install the stop sign at the intersection. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. That's a 5-0 vote. Just looking ahead to item number 6. Mr. Perrin, I see in your report that you would say that if we were going to create the no parking loading zone, that we should consider establishing specific days and hours. And so I would like to entertain a motion that we table this for the 29th and ask Councilor LeBron Martinez to get us that specific information.
Motion to table.
Do you want? Councilor
Second.
McGivern has raised his hand before the second came in, so I'll recognize Councilor McGivern, and then Mr. Parent, if you have anything else to add, we'll allow you to do so as well. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor LISI. Just a question through the chair. Bob, this is 210 High Street, and I believe they have a parking lot attached to that building, their own parking lot.
I believe that's the case, yes.
Why couldn't they use the parking lot for the drop-off and pickup? Why should we lose parking? And those spaces are used continually during the Monday through Friday, downtown. And I think they're valuable spaces to all the businesses downtown for people coming and going. And this business has its own parking lot where they allow, I believe, employees to park there, and there certainly are other options for the employees.
I would say I'm not making a recommendation because at this point, it's really more, from my standpoint, a matter of policy than anything else, than a technical issue. And then there's some lack of clarity as to where the requested spaces are. So I did send an email out to Elena at VCare because she referenced the intersection of High Street and Maple Street, and as you obviously know, High Street and Maple Street don't intersect. So I'm not quite certain exactly what spaces she had in mind, and I have not heard back yet.
Thank you. And just to the members of the committee, I think this is a concern that for the bigger picture, we should keep an eye on before we make a decision.
Thank you. I still be interested in tabling this and having some more discussion next week if possible.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to follow up on that, and we're not disparaging anybody by saying this, but this is not the first time the same counselor has done a similar order to take public parking away for a specific entity or individual. We had the exact same thing happen, not once, but twice, across from a establishment at the top end of Hampden Street. So we had to go through these gymnastics twice for the same thing. So, I mean, if the counselors are gonna do this, you've got to weigh, because we've got a similar situation at Northampton and Courser Street. So just in fairness to the entities in the area, you can't just take a wish list from one party and file the order and then not do any due diligence, or not expect to get pushback by counselors that pay attention, or more to the point, that there are constituents that come back to counselors. Why are they doing this? Well, because a counselor got one person to say it, and we filed the order. It's not fair, and we go through this stuff repeatedly. Thank you.
Motion to table.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so
Aye.
moved. On item number 7, Mr. Parent, do you want to summarize the recommendation here?
Certainly. Councilor Bartley had filed this order and had basically flagged a number of the residential side streets off of Homestead Avenue, as well as a couple of other streets for truck exclusions. We have not gone out and looked at truck traffic in every one of these streets, but we have looked at Edbert, we have looked at Memorial, we have looked at Hillside, and the unfortunate thing is, although we are seeing some heavy commercial vehicle traffic on each one of those streets, it does happen. It doesn't happen at a level where we can petition Mass DOT for a Mass DOT approved truck restriction, because they pretty rigorously enforce the threshold of at least 5 to 8% of the total vehicles in the street having to be heavy commercial vehicles in order to support that exclusion. The concept there is an occasional vehicle, a vehicle a day, a few vehicles a day, when you have a large volume of other traffic, doesn't trigger that threshold. So what we've been doing, certainly with the strong encouragement of Councilor Bartley and Acting Mayor Murphy, is trying to work on some improvements on signage. And you may or may not have noticed already at this point, what we have done is we've put in some truck route signs on Homestead to help to inform truckers that Homestead is really the street that they're supposed to be on. We'd prefer they weren't there either, but if they're going to take a pick and be on a street, Homestead is the street that they need to be on. And we've advised them that if they were to take a turn into Sheehan, into Edbert, into I'm blanking out the other, Memorial, that in fact they will be getting onto a street where we do have a DOT approved truck restriction on the other end of the street, Westfield Road, where trucks are absolutely not permitted, and it's enforceable that trucks could be fined for driving on Westfield Road. We're partway there. We have sketched out and I've come up with a number of locations for additional truck signage coming in from Westfield, to, again, the same type of thing, to sign the truck route, sign the route in which we want people to go, and then sign the route in which we don't want them to go, in order to try to help improve compliance with keeping trucks off of Westfield Road, because that is, again, an enforceable restriction. We don't need any additional DOT approvals or anything else to be able to enforce that.
Under discussion, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. I just want to thank both you and Councilor Bartley for your work on this, because Ward 5 and Ward 3 meet right there. And there have been huge tractor-trailer trucks that went down McGrady Street, which I think is even smaller than the ones that Councilor Bartley listed. So I appreciate the extra signage, and I think it'll go a long way to improve that problem in both wards. It's not perfect, but unfortunately, the GPS sometimes takes the trucks off route if it doesn't recalibrate quickly enough, and I think that's been some of the problem. And I know at one point you reached out to Google Maps, I guess, to see if they could fix some of that, because I understand that you can do that. so that those maps work more effectively. So in any event, whatever you can keep doing in that regard, and I thank Councilor Bartley for all the work he's done on this. And you, Mr. Parent.
Terry, you want to say something?
If I could.
Councilor Murphy.
Councilor McGivern also has his hand up too, so just so you know. And I think he might have had it up before me, but
Your committee members, a difference to the committees.
sorry, Councilor
Yeah,
McGivern.
I like that. I like that by the chair. That's the way you should roll.
So I would just, a couple of things. I would also like to thank our city engineer, who's excellent to work with and tries to come up with solutions that we can do. And obviously, we've got problems. I would also want to commend, and I know I think Councilor Bartley got part of this email today, if I'm not mistaken. I want to commend the police department and Captain Moriarty. He has reached out to Dollar General on Westfield Road to talk to their drivers in terms of going on side streets. He has also reached out to, he got some apps from truck drivers in terms of the GPS advisors that they use, and they are looking to see if we can eliminate some of these side streets from their GPS recommendations. So I want to publicly thank Captain Moriarty for taking that up. I know he was also good at coming to a meeting that Councilor Bartley hosted on Memorial Drive. So we are trying to work on them. It's obviously difficult, and I also appreciate the signage that our city engineer and the DPW have worked to get up on some of these streets. And I just think we need to make it as obvious as possible that, you know, we really want you to stay on truck routes and not be going through side streets. So, but again, I want to thank everybody and our city engineer for what he's done on this, and Captain Moriarty and the police department. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair Lisi, and I certainly will recognize deference to committee members when we're in the Finance Committee. I just wanted to thank my ward councilor, Councilor Bartley, for keeping this issue alive, and thank Bob for the work he's done on it. There is just something that makes no sense about this, and it's only been, I think, David, maybe recent that we've seen 18-wheelers in all the neighborhoods, including on my street. These 18-wheelers don't want to be on a side street. They gain nothing from it. They're not, you know, maybe a couple or might have been Dollar Generals taking a wrong turn here and there, but these, I'm convinced it's GPS, and it's recalculating GPS, which for something had to happen at the corner of Homestead and Westfield Road, some type of change that's making these trucks come forward and then recalculate, because it's the only way, it's the only thing that makes any sense. Now, the state, you know, I understand we can't do the truck exclusions, but the state's partly responsible for this. First of all, they take Route 202 and they divide it in the city of Holyoke. There's a portion of Route 202 going south when it comes over the Muller Bridge, and it goes up Hampton Street, while Route 202 going north is coming down Beach Street. So if you're driving an 18-wheeler and you're following GPS, you have no clue where you are. The quickest route to Beach Street is down Westfield Road, but then it recalculates you because you're no longer on Route 202. So there's something going on that the state, you know, needs to come to their senses and work with the city of Holyoke and not just redirect their routes for their own purposes. The second thing is a good portion of these 18-wheelers should not even be coming into Holyoke. They are coming from distribution centers in the city of Westfield, large distribution centers. They're on Route 10. They should be forced to go down Route 10 and get on Route 90, period. And I've asked our police department to enforce this. I've asked the state to look into putting a weigh station, temporary weigh station, and discouraging these drivers for coming through, trying to get to 91 quicker, saving a few bucks by not taking the toll road. There's more that can be done to keep these 18-wheelers out of Holyoke, and I appreciate Councilor Bartley. I appreciate our engineer for staying on top of this, but believe me, they don't want to be on these side streets. They're looking for the quickest way through, and it's a problem that's more than just signs. It's a problem that we need the state to weigh in on.
Thank you. Councilor Bacon.
I'd just like to make one comment through the chair to Councilor McGivern. And I don't know if this will pan out, but I'm hoping that once we get the light installed at the top of Appermont, it will finally discourage those truckers from wanting to continue to come up that hill. That's my hope.
Councilor Bartley.
Yep, so I thank you. I thank the chair for taking this up. Thank you, Mr. Parent. Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor, for your diligence. Thank you to the citizens up that in that area, really all around Elmwood Heights. Thank you, Councilor McGivern, for your comments, and everybody else for the Councilor Bacon for your comments. And so I just want to make a couple points because it's I think it's instructive. One is just what Joe said. There's no debate. They're cutting off. They're cutting off the road. I'll just explain one other because I see it all the time. 91 South, hop off at the Soldiers Home, ramble over down 202, and head out to Westfield. I follow vehicles there myself. The reason they're doing it, as Joe rightly pointed out, they're just avoiding the toll. There's no question that they could go to whatever the new exit is now. I don't know. It used to be exit 14, but whatever it is now. There's no question they could go down to that exit, hop on the Pike, and zip over to Westfield that way, but they want to avoid the toll. And so this is a problem. Second of all, as Joe rightly pointed out, this whole thing about the 5%, 8%, Mr. Parent's in a box. I get it. But you know what? Those rules were not written by God, okay? So they're written by legislators, and that can be amended. And I appreciate Joe following up with other entities like Mass DOT, because Mass DOT is just following the regulations, but Mass DOT didn't invent them. The legislature allowed Mass DOT to do that. So if, legislature can give and they can take away and they can amend. So if, in fact, that's what city engineers, that's an argument that should start with city engineers in your bailiwick to, what are other city engineers finding? Are these rules too onerous? Well, if they are, and your local legislators are finding this ridiculous, go figure it out, get a plan, tell it to Boston, and they can amend it. These are not in stone. So I would just ask you to consider that, because it is frustrating. And why is it frustrating? Well, constituents there have these inventions now called these doorbell videos. I don't even know what they are, but I've seen them, and I forward them to the acting mayor, I forward them for Captain Moriarty, and they're unbelievable. When you see a truck, an 18-wheeler, parked in Westfield Road, heading east, stopped for a period of time, longer than a minute, and taking a left onto Memorial Avenue, which is a slight, and then at 5 in the morning with the Jake brakes and rolling over somebody's lawn, that sucks. And city engineers around the Commonwealth should know that. You wouldn't want to have your lawn driven over by an 18-wheeler taking a turn on your pretty little lawn, because nobody else likes it. State regulations be damned. Figure out another plan for it, because this is nonsense. It's not something to be joke about. I know we all get hot and heavy about stuff that's maybe in the grand scheme of things a molehill, but you wouldn't like it either. If somebody's 18-wheeler is waking you up at 5 in the morning, rolling over your garden, you can't get a regulation because Mass DOT says it's not right because it doesn't meet the 8% threshold. Knock it off. That can be amended. So the last thing I'm going to tell you, because I saw it myself, so I wish I had. I can't video anything. I don't even know how these things work. But when you see a truck coming from Dollar General in Kmart, taking a left, Joe, on Lawler Street, going to the end of Lawler Street, knocking off all the branches because it's a canopy, knocking the branches off, peppering everyone on the way down, taking a right onto Martin Street. Only reason you made it because there wasn't a car parked there that day, and then taking a left onto Hitchcock Street, then going up to Westfield Road to make the other Dollar General store. This is what they do. This is what these knuckleheads are doing. Whether or not they can see the road, or they just found the GPS because they're mindless idiots. But fortunately, Captain Moriarty and other people in IT are advocating for them, and they're advocating to them to stop doing this. But let's call it what it is. I mean, it is a quality of life issue. When we met up at Memorial Avenue with Terry, and I should have invited Joy, it got away from me. But we had a good 20, 25 people there in the Captain, and they're serious. This is ridiculous. It goes right to quality of life. So I guess the best thing we can do with this is to say it's complied with. I know Terry and Bob and Mike will get on getting the signs posted on Westfield Road because they've been doing a great job so far. And I know the residents up there greatly appreciate it, but they're not gonna let it go. So, and when it happens to your neighborhood, then you're gonna come back here and say, I mean, other people, well, what about my neighborhood? Well, let's stay on this stuff and let's stay on this threshold because it doesn't have to be that way. It can be amended. Thank you.
Just as a point of order, Councilor Bartley, since it seems that the engineer has not completed the review of all the streets, do you want to table it or is complied with, as you mentioned?
It's up to the committee. I mean, really, whatever the committee or whatever Bob and the mayor and you feel bad. I just said it because I know it's kind of pro forma to move things along, but I mean, there's still work to be done. So if you want to take it up again in a month or two, and we'll get rid of it in the fall, then so
I would probably take it up either between August, September, or in September.
Great. Great.
I'd make a motion to table till September so that we can see what progress has been made and if things have improved.
Yes. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The item has been tabled.
Should we take up item 8?
Item 8. Wait, everything's off the table already.
Oh.
Yep, we're there.
So this is the petition for a speed hump at Argyle Ave, and it says, per the engineer's report, that it is not recommended. I don't know if you want to speak more to this, Mr. Parent.
Certainly, the first step we typically take on a speed hump petition is we go out there and we measure the existing speeds. We did that on Argyle, and we found, somewhat surprisingly, because it doesn't happen very often, that the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed that 85% of the people drive at or below, is 21 miles per hour, and that over 97%, all but 3% of the drivers drive below the citywide speed limit of 25 miles per hour in thickly settled areas. What that means is that there are, and we did confirm that there are a few drivers that drive at a high rate of speed on Argyle, but the vast majority of drivers drive at or well below the speed limit. What that means is putting in speed humps may or may not have any effect because it will not, there's no need to change the behavior of most of the drivers on Argyle, and that the few individuals that might decide that they want to greatly overspeed, probably won't be deterred by a speed hump or two on Argyle. What might be a more effective approach would be, and I believe the police department has the ability to put their radar devices out to come up with a period of time where they typically see the higher rate of speed when those 2 or 3 people a day happen to be driving down the street, and then do some selective traffic speed enforcement at that time as a deterrent, as opposed to putting something out there that's going to be in place 100% of the time and not provide any benefit for the vast majority of the drivers that use the street.
Under discussion, Councilor Bartley, do you want
Yeah, just through the chair to Bob. So thank you for this, Bob. It's very helpful. I need to be able to explain this, and then we can have a discussion about how we want to dispose of it or not. If the DPW if the city engineer does not recommend it, what does that mean exactly? In other words, can the city council ignore the recommendation and pass it, or is that not possible?
I think the city council can vote to do whatever it wants, and whether it's advisable.
No, I just want Bob to. I'm just asking Bob. Do you know the answer, Bob?
I would agree with the chair that the city council has the authority to take whatever measures that it feels is appropriate. We make recommendations, but you could choose not to agree with my recommendations.
And I just want to say this just to Councilor LISI and to the committee. Now, I'm obviously not on the committee, but what I would humbly request is that we, the committee, we, the city council, at least get the opportunity to hear from residents of Argyle Avenue. I mean, I don't live there. I mean, I walk there, I ride my bike, and I don't cut through there. So anybody in Argyle, just so you know, I'm not. That's not a cut through. I know that the residents, because I had a meeting with them probably 6 years ago on a Friday night, and there were, you can't believe it, but there were 25 of them came out, and it happened to be that there was a business on the corner in that area, and I think that was a source of the frustration. So the business generated traffic early in the morning and then mid-afternoon, and the cars were coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out, and there were a lot of them for them. Now, I mean, I define a lot. I mean, I have no idea, but it was more than residents. So they were out of the neighborhood. So I don't really think it's necessarily cut through people, because it's not really a cut through street. So I believe that was a source of it and a source of frustration, but that business is now gone. However, this petition came in subsequent to the business departing. So I would like to at least find a date, because this kind of came up on me. I saw the agenda last week, but it kind of crept up on me, and I haven't reached out to any of the Argyle Ave residents, and I'd like to give them at least a 30-day or 45-day heads up as to when we can, possibly suspend our rules and hear from them. Is what I would ask. So
I make a motion we table this and invite
Second.
the residents.
But do we want to say a date certain? Like, do we want to say the second meeting in September, or, so?
Yeah, well, just give me
There
enough
can
time
be the
to,
ability to plan.
so the committee
We'll
could.
just say
could hear from them.
September, table to September.
All right.
So, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 9 is a speed bump petition for Michigan Avenue. Under discussion, Mr. Parent.
Certainly. Michigan Avenue is a street that we've looked at a couple of times now. We did do the initial speed study. We did confirm that a significant volume of the vehicles on Michigan do exceed the citywide posted speed limit. We have agreed that our next step is to install the temporary speed bumps. We have not been able to get to it yet due to staffing limitations, unfortunately. I don't have anything else I can really say about that, but I'm staying on the guys, and they're telling me that once they get back from the 4th of July holiday, we'll be back closer to a fuller crew and should be able to get the temporary speed humps in. What we'll then do is once they've been in for a little while, we'll then get our speed counters out there. We'll take a look at whether or not they actually had any effect in terms of impacting the volume and the speed of the vehicles, and then bring forward a recommendation to this committee, and ultimately this committee. The next step would typically then hold a public hearing to receive input from residents regarding whether or not to move ahead with the permanent speed humps.
Council Bartley, as the maker, do you want to add anything?
No, he nailed it.
Okay, motion to table then.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to table item number 9. Item 10 is that the truck exclusion signs be added to both ends of Bemis Road. Under discussion, Mr. Parent.
Since we've touched on this topic already in a different location, I'll kind of cut to the chase right here. We did the same routine. We put in our video monitoring equipment. We saw a high volume of vehicles on Bemis Road, but the vast majority of them, very small percentage of them, are heavy commercial vehicles. A couple of trucks per day when there's a much larger volume of regular vehicles. Again, as Councilor Bartley indicated, I'm somewhat in a box relative to the ability to comply with Mass DOT standards. So I'm confident that they would never officially approve a truck exclusion on the street as their rules are currently written. I'm not a big fan of putting up signs to put up signs, but I'll be honest that if the DPW gets a directive to put up truck exclusion signs at the end of Venus Road, we will put them up. Whether or not there would be an enforceable exclusion or not, it may in fact have a deterrent effect.
If I can.
Under discussion, Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And I think that's what we're trying to do on Memorial Circle or Memorial Drive and Moss Avenue. And I really would think, I'd like to see what the results are. But I don't want to put signs up, but my gut is at least it deters some. I'm certain it doesn't deter a significant number, but if it deters 10, 15, 20%, then obviously that is a little safer for those people and a little more convenient. But and Councilor Bartley, I know you probably haven't heard if there's any more. We haven't gotten the signs up on Westfield Road at Memorial Drive yet, right, Bob?
Not on the Westfield side, and
Okay.
also not at the approaches to the intersection. So we've got a bit more work to do there.
Okay. But, I know they're visible. I don't know if anybody's come from the Homestead Avenue side of that. Councilor Bartley, if you've heard anything, since the signs were up. So, it would be interesting if it's been a deterrent, and if it has, then, it's not the ideal solution, but it may at least provide some remedy. But I appreciate your thoughts, Bob. Thanks. And I appreciate your efforts.
Anyone else want to comment on this item? Is the will then to place the signs or to table to see what the result was? In the other
I would
area?
say let's table it for now, and we'll get results and kind of have a better idea. I know the signs were put up, and I can't think of the person's name. I know him, and his sons have played in my baseball league. And I know you, Mr. Gallagher, right? Was that who put up the signs, Bob? Mr. Gallagher?
Oh, yes, Mike Gallagher, yes.
Yeah. So, and I do appreciate him getting them up. I know he put a special effort to get them up on Homestead. So, I'm interested to see. And if we find that the residents aren't complaining so much, then obviously they had some deterring effect. So, and that would be the goal.
So the motion that was made was to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. Item number 11 is for the handicap placard removal.
Motion that we remove the handicap sign as it's no longer needed.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to support the removal. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. And item number 12 is that the handicap placard in front of 7 Russell Terrace be removed.
A motion to remove the handicap sign as it's no longer needed.
Motion has been
Second.
made and seconded.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn, yep.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Mr. Parent, committee members. The motion has been made to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. Very good.
Thank you, Bob.
Good evening, thank you.